Summers versus Martin. Step forward.
Michelle Summers is suing her former friend, Michelle Martin, for unpaid loans and for vandalizing her front door.
Ms. Summers, you and the defendant, according to what I read in your complaint, and you claim 2 loans to her, one back in September of 2008 and one more recently in January of 2009. Is your claim that you had a falling out, that she refuses to pay you back the money? In addition, she vandalized, according to you, your house, broke your door. Ms. Martin says that there was never any discussion of repayment of any of the money that you gave her. You were friends, you were helping her out. And with regard to vandalizing your door, she said that didn't happen, and she's counterclaiming because she said you had her falsely arrested for vandalism. She wants to be compensated for her bail. How long have you been friends, Ms. Summers?
Since 2004.
Now, you gave her money in September of 2008. You want to tell me what you gave her the money for?
She had recently became unemployed and was falling behind in some bills, and she asked me if I could give her the loan to catch up on her bills.
How much did you give her at that time?
$350.
And did she pay you back any part of the $350?
No, Your Honor.
When was she supposed to pay you back the $350?
Well, she was in the process of looking for a job. So the agreement was to pay me back within 30 days, or she would pay me back when she got her income tax.
And when was the next sum of money that you advanced to her?
That would have been January 22nd of 2009. She had called me that morning about 6:30, upset that her car had been repossessed. And she originally asked me if I had $1,300. I told her I didn't have that much, that I was on my way to class, and I would call her when I got out of class and let her know what I could afford to let her borrow. When I got out of class, her and her daughter's father met me at my house. I told her I could give her $500. Gave her the $500, and then she asked me if I could take her to the location to actually pick up the car, which is about 45 minutes from where we live. I took her up there. When she got there, she still didn't have enough. So she asked me if I had anything else. I had like $55 more in cash on me. I gave her the $55, and the agreement was that she would pay me by filing her taxes that day and get a rapid refund where they give you $1,000 up front. She was going to at least pay me back the $550 that she borrowed that day, at least. Okay. And then the remainder when she got the rest of her refund.
And
then she called me later that night and told me that she didn't file it rapid, that it was costing too much, and that she filed it for a 14-day return, which I was a little upset, but since in the past she was the type of person that paid back, we had done this before.
Well, she hadn't paid you back the $350.
Well, that was in with the tax return, because she told me she was getting back like $4,200 or something, so I'm thinking I'm good. She would pay me back my little money.
Where did you get the money from?
Student loan. I had got my student loan January the 15th, and she was aware of that.
What year are you in college?
Second.
How long have you been in college?
Since 2007.
How many credits do you have?
At this point, I think 12. I'm not sure. No, 16.
Do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I sit with the elderly, go to their home and help them with their daily activities.
Is that how you support yourself?
Yes.
So you go to school in addition to that?
Yes.
Well, at this rate, it's going to take you 10 years to finish with school.
Yes.
This is very good America. Now, something happened, Ms. Summers, that caused a sort of altercation that resulted in Ms. Martin being arrested for vandalism. Do you want to tell me what happened?
Yes, Your Honor. On the day that I gave Ms. Martin the loan, we had went out that night to a bar, and she had wanted to introduce me to her daughter's father's friend. And I had told her I wasn't really interested, but I was cordial about it, and went along and met him. And on the 25th, which was Sunday night, Miss Martin had called me and told me of a rumor that the guy she introduced me to had said. So then I told her, I'll talk to him. And so then he calls me back like an hour later, and, I tell him how I feel about the room. I didn't talk to Miss Martin no more until Monday morning. She had called me or texted me or something that she was off about how I handled it or whatnot. And so that's when she called me up on the phone, cussing and ranting and raving, and was on my street, is what she said. And by the time I got off the phone with her, less than a minute later, I hear a bang at the door. So my son comes around, which he's here to testify. He's seen it. We come around down the hallway. By the time we get down the hallway, she's actually came through the bar door. The glass, she's standing there holding that. She's in the foyer part of my door.
It's not true.
Through the bar door and the door. And at that time, I called the police, and she took off.
Was the door broken?
the glass came out. It didn't shatter, but both top and bottom glass, the frame.
So all you have to do is snap it back in.
Well, it can't be snapped back in. I tried to see if it could just be, the little hinges could be snapped back in, but I went to several different places. And
Okay, and how much is the door?
I have an estimate for $382.
Okay, let's talk about September of 2008, $350.
She was giving me money.
Okay.
She was using her financial aid money, just was going to the clubs on it and everything. So
I'm not talking about going to clubs on it. I'm talking about $350 that she says she gave you when you had fallen behind on some of your bills.
I don't recall $350.
Okay, good. She does recall it, so that's what you owe her. If you don't recall it, and she does recall it, then I have to go with her memory. Let's go to the $555 for your car.
She gave me $555. My car got repoed. There was no talk of repayment. I was unemployed.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. Did you file your tax returns this year?
I did.
Yep. File your tax returns. You filed it by yourself, or you had the assistance of a tax provider?
Preparation, yes.
And you were advised that you were going to get a refund?
Right.
How much?
$42.
$42?
$100.
Okay, so that's $905 that you owe her. Now let's go to the door. You went over to her house and you were angry. Why were you angry? Why were you angry?
I was angry for so many, over 50 text messages and calls. I went to her house to speak to her as a woman.
About what?
Just, I want my pots, I want my pan, my battery, I want the money, I want everything back. She became angry and wanted everything back that she gave throughout the friendship.
Okay, fine. So you went over there and you were angry. Just a second. You went over there and you were angry.
Not so much angry.
You went over there and you were angry. That's what you just told me about all the text messages. Is that right?
I went over there to speak with her.
You went over there to speak with her angry. And it is true, according to you, that the panes of glass fell out of the door. Is that right?
It's plexiglass.
Whether it's plexiglass or not, put your hand down. I don't need you. It fell out.
It did fall out.
Very good. And that's when she called the police.
She called the police when it fell out. I grabbed it.
And she had you arrested for vandalism.
Yes.
Or for trespass or whatever else. And you had to pay to get out of jail.
Yes.
That's what happens when you go to someplace angry.
But it was not vandalism.
That's why the case was dismissed.
Yes, it was not vandalism.
That's why the case was dismissed. It actually was. There was no damage. And probably the court didn't want to be bothered with the nonsense, but she had every right to call the police. You were acting in an irrational manner. She had every right to call the police. Your counterclaim's dismissed. You owe her $1,287. Judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you very much.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Rise. Yeah, this is case number 132 on the calendar in the matter of Newbolts versus Morozic.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Newbolts, you were married to the defendant's sister, and it is your claim that at a Christmas party in December of 2008, your former brother-in-law assaulted you. Your brother-in-law acknowledges that there was an altercation. He says that you were fighting with his sister, that you were drunk, that you assaulted her, and that he was merely protecting her and getting you out of the house. How long were you and your wife married?
We was married approximately a year and a few months, ma'am.
Do you have a bank account with your brother?
No, but I gave him a check for $5,000.
Show me.
It's on there.
Show me your check.
Oh, I don't have the check with me.
Listen, this is not evidence of a debt.
That does show the deposit for the $5,000 from her to her brother's bank account.
All I want to see is the check.
You can get that, Mama.
I want to see your check, and I want to see your bank statement where you took out $4,000 on September 13th. That's what I want to see. So, I'll see you later. Bye.
Parties are excused. Step out, please. Your Honor, it's a recall of case number 270 in the matter of Porter versus Ciccarelli. Parties are reminded you're still under oath.
All right, Ms. Porter, my clerks were able to secure the account of your brother and you, which suggests and demonstrates that you did, in fact, give him a check for $5,000.
Yes, ma'am.
On the 13th of September of 2008. That was the same day the bail was paid. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Ciccarelli, despite our best efforts and the clerk's best efforts, and the lawyer who sits back here, her best efforts, we have been unable to secure anything from your bank that even suggests that they know who you are. Close your mouth, sir. We have not been able to get that. And I assume that you exercised your best efforts to try to get some proof for me that you withdrew $4,000 from an account.
Yes.
Well, what do you think I'm going to deduce from that, Mr. Ciccarelli?
I have the bankruptcy here.
I don't care about your bankruptcy. Who cares about your bankruptcy? Bank record.
Okay.
When did your business start to go south, Mr. Ciccarelli? Month and year?
Probably November, December of 08.
How much were you earning before that?
About $3,000 a week.
What kind of business was it?
Chimneys.
Chimneys what?
Building, repairing.
How long did you have the business?
About 4 years.
And how old are you?
I'm 33.
What did you do before that?
Chimneys.
For somebody else?
Yes.
What are you doing now?
Chimneys.
For somebody else?
Yes.
You have a bank account where you put your checks?
Yes, I do.
With what bank?
Bank of Smithtown.
Is that where you've been living?
No, I live in Sound Beach.
How long have you lived in Sound Beach?
5 years.
Who do you live with?
My wife?
You have children?
Yes.
You live in a house or an apartment?
In a house.
You own your own home?
Yes.
5 years? In whose name is the house?
It's under my mother-in-law.
When was it transferred to your mother-in-law's name?
It's always been under my mother. We bought it from my mother-in-law.
You bought it from her?
Yes.
Is the house listed in your bankruptcy papers?
No.
Why wasn't the title ever transferred to you and your wife?
Because we couldn't get approved for the thing because of the bankruptcy.
Well, you didn't file for bankruptcy, sir, until later. You've been in the house longer than the bankruptcy.
I know, but we didn't wind up buying it from my mother-in-law until afterwards because she was going into foreclosure.
So you took it over?
Yes.
But not formally?
No.
You just live there?
Yes.
And pay the mortgage?
Yes.
You pay the mortgage by check?
Yes.
And you've been paying the mortgage by check from the same bank since you took the mortgage over 3 years ago?
Correct.
Do you get where I'm going, Mr. Ciccarelli?
Yeah, but it was a different, my business was a different bank.
Well, why would you take money out of your business?
Because I didn't want my wife to see the money taken out of our account.
So you're going to lie to her?
Yes, I was.
And when you were going to lie to her, were you going to look at her the same way as you're looking at me right now and telling me the story?
I'm not lying about this, so I mean, it doesn't matter.
So if you're not lying, she's lying. I just want to know, if you're not lying, Mrs. Porter is lying.
Absolutely.
And her brother is lying.
They got that money for their lawyer. That was the money for their lawyer. So where did the lawyer get paid?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm going to ask them. What's the name of the lawyer you used?
William.
Has your son's case been resolved?
Yes, it has.
What was the disposition of the case?
It was dismissed.
Mr. will represent your son until the dismissal?
Yes, he did, ma'am.
What was his fee?
I don't know. My son took care of that.
Your Honor, I took the payments over and I paid it.
Did Mr. represent you with the arraignment?
Yes, he did.
Who retained him?
My mother.
On what date did your mother retain him? You were released on bail on the 13th, which means that you were arraigned prior to the 13th.
Correct.
Which means that Mr. is not going to the arraignment without a retainer. No question about that. And you were arrested for felony count heroin possession.
Yes.
How much did Mr. charge as a retainer?
It was $1,000 up front, I believe, and then it was $3,800 after that.
Who paid it?
I believe my mom paid the first payment, and then I took the payments on after that.
If I were to call Mr. would he say to me that he charged $1,000 up front to go to the arraignment?
Yes, he would.
And then $3,800?
Yes, he would.
And you paid him $1,000 when, Miss Porter?
I guess the week after my son was arraigned.
No, criminal lawyers don't wait until the week after. Criminal lawyers want their money before they go to the arraignment.
He's been a family lawyer for many years, so he works with us.
Mr. has represented your family in what kind of matters before?
All kind of legal matters. Buying, selling a house.
Divorce.
Divorce.
And he represented you throughout the pendency of these criminal proceedings?
Yes, he has.
I believe them. Don't believe you, sir. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you, Your Honor.
22-year-old Lorena Villapudua is suing her boyfriend's ex, 24-year-old Magdalena Contreras, for vandalizing her car. Lorena claims Magdalena ripped off the license plate frame.
According to your complaint, the defendant, Ms. Contreras, is your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend.
Correct.
They also have a child together.
Right.
How old is that child?
He's 6.
Are you pregnant again?
Yes.
Whose baby is that?
My fiance.
You live together?
Yes.
You only have one child?
Little Rudy, and then this one that's coming on the way.
According to your complaint, you and your fiance were at an open school night at Rudy's school.
Right.
The defendant was there with her mother.
Yes.
There was some sort of an argument that took place, and after that, Miss Contreras vandalized your car.
Yes, because she was upset with him.
Miss Contreras says she didn't do as much as you said she did, just did a little. Is that your defense?
Yes.
Miss Contreras, that's almost like being a little bit pregnant. It doesn't happen.
Lorena Villapudua says her boyfriend's ex, Magdalena Contreras, vandalized her car. Magdalena claims Lorena provoked her.
Now, I'm going to go to Miss Contreras because Miss Contreras doesn't seem to object and seems to acknowledge the fact that she did put her hands on your car. So I'm going to ask her to tell me why.
Because my ex, Rudy, was supposed to take our son.
Rudy?
Yes. He was supposed to take our son to open house, which he didn't. And
Okay. So it was an open school night and Rudy was with his father?
yes,
For how long?
it's joint custody, so every other week he's with his dad.
So he had him for the week?
Yes.
Okay, so he didn't bring him to open school night.
Yeah, he didn't.
So?
So I got upset and I started asking him, why didn't he bring our son? And he said our son would rather be with his grandpa. And I just got upset and I started yelling at him.
In the school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
Because I was upset. I was hurt that he didn't take our son.
Control yourself. You were making a scene in the school?
Yes.
Well, that's stupid.
I know it's stupid.
Didn't your mother tell you to shut up?
Yeah, she did tell me to shut up, but I didn't
Good
listen
for
to her.
you.
No, she didn't.
Good for you.
She did not.
Shh. Am I the kind of person who needs help from you?
No.
So you created a scene in your son's school, which of course left everybody, including the teachers, the administration, the other parents, with the idea that this child comes from a home where they're not going to let their kids go and visit, certainly, because his mother doesn't know how to control herself.
Well, I was very hurt that he didn't take our son. Our son was
Get over it.
all happy that he was going to go.
Get over it. Did the court grant you joint custody?
Yes.
If the court granted you joint custody, then the court clearly had to say, I think that both of these parents are responsible enough to take care of this child an equal amount of time, that they're two good parents, and they made a judgment that he was as good a parent as you were. So that if he's with his father and his father decides not to bring him to open school night, that's none of your business. So let's move on from there. So you got angry, making a scene in the school in front of other people. Then what did you do?
We went into the classroom, the teacher started talking to us, and she was showing us...
Were you behaving at this point?
Yeah.
Good.
I just went to his desk and got his little picture, and then me and my mom took off, and then I seen Lorena's car, and I recognized it, and I just broke off her license plate holder. That's all I did to it. I didn't scratch it or anything else.
Well, tell me exactly the steps that you took. You saw her car while you were driving in your car?
No,
Or
I
were
was
you
walking to my car.
Okay. You were walking to your car, you saw her car. So you had to bend down. Did you take off the back license plate or the front?
The back, just the holder.
And what did you do with it?
I broke it off, and then I was going to leave it on her window, but I didn't, so I just took off with it.
Can I see photographs of the damage to the car, please?
Yes, you may. I also have a police report,
I'd like to see that, too.
and it has a witness, a 13-year-old girl that was standing out near the car.
Well, when you pulled it off, madam, you scratched the paint.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did!
No, I didn't. I didn't
Listen
scratch
to
her
me.
car.
Listen to me. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. That's why I'm here and you're there.
I didn't scratch her car.
That's why I'm here and you're there.
Your Honor, I seen it.
Just a second. Say nothing. You still have to share custody of this child, I assume.
Yes.
So, she can get mad at me, I don't care. As a matter of fact, I rather like it. You were driving the white truck?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said to your daughter, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Exactly. What did you say to this idiot when she got back into the car?
I told her that, why did you do that? It was uncalled for.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You have an estimate?
I do.
I didn't scratch her car when I broke that off. There's no way that I scratched her car.
Your Honor, may I say something?
Go ahead.
The license plate frame is screwed on.
I know what she did. She
can't-
pulled it off. She went like this in order to get it off, and in doing so, she scratched the car with the license plate. That's what she did. And she keeps saying, I just took off the frame. When you went over to take off the frame, genius, did you have with you a pliers?
No.
You had your hands?
Yes.
So you had to pull it. It was screwed on. When you pulled it, in order to get it off, and you were jiggling it, you scratched around the car. Do you get it?
I didn't scratch your car.
Oh, what an idiot. What an idiot. Listen, do me a favor. You know, she's pregnant now. When she's finished, discuss birth control with her. It's really a shame that we're continuing this. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $618. That's all.
Laura Schmidt says Cody and Brandy Mather owe for breach of contract regarding the sale of a weekend cabin.
Well, folks, I must tell you that I have been involved in the sale of property over the course of my lifetime, and this is one of the dumbest contracts that I have ever seen. And why three seemingly intelligent people would enter into such a ridiculous agreement is beyond me. And why the attorneys who represented you in the sale of this cabin would allow you to enter into this agreement. Maybe it's because you're young, but you're not that young. So this is what it's about, Bert. Listen, careful attention.
Got it.
Miss Schmitz had a cabin that she was very fond of. It was a vacation cabin. However, as fond as she was of the cabin, she decided to sell it. And she sold it to Mr. and Mrs. Mather, a lovely young couple who wanted a vacation place. Where is this cabin located?
Sashing Lake, Washington.
Beautiful, on a lake. However, Miss Schmitz wasn't prepared to totally let go of this cabin, so she maintained, through a letter of intent with the Mathers, an agreement that twice a year she was going to be able to use the cabin for a week each. Once Memorial Day, where she had a big party every year, and once during the summer. These folks agreed to that condition. Now, the first week she used the cabin, according to her, everything was okay.
Yes.
But when she was planning the second weekend, Mr. and Mrs. Mather were having second thoughts already about this agreement. So they sort of, according to her, made it unpleasant. They didn't give her the key to the cabin. They said, we're not giving you a key. We'll unlock it, and when you leave, you lock it, which sort of, to her, made her a prisoner in the cabin because she couldn't leave for the whole week. She was afraid the cabin would be unlocked and unattended to. And then she found her stuff piled up because she sold the cabin furnished. Anyway, because of what she considered a breach of their contract, she hired an attorney to sort of get involved. So she is suing them now because she wants the attorney's fees that she expended to sort of make sure this weekend took place. And then when she went there, you flew there, is that right?
Yes, it's over 300 miles from where I live.
So did you fly, is my question.
Yes.
To make a long story short, she didn't stay. So she wants them to pay for her airfare and for some stuff of hers that she says was missing from the cabin. I don't know what could be missing since she sold it. I don't understand that. Mr. and Mrs. Mather say, well, they really weren't thrilled with her coming for the second weekend because they had heard via neighbors about the previous weekend, but they never told her that she couldn't come, and that when she was there previously, she broke some things, she took some things, and also for lawyers' fees because they had to get their lawyer involved to talk to her lawyer about this alleged breach of contract for the second week vacation. Did I sort of outline it pretty well?
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
The idea was this sale with tentacles.
Laura.
Your Honor, it was my idea because I was giving up thousands of dollars in a prepayment penalty so that they could get their own financing.
You bought the cabin when?
In '94.
And you bought
a
it?
20-year contract.
Which said?
$1,000 for every year and partial year that you end the contract, and it was an assumable contract.
Just a second. You're talking about a mortgage?
Correct, a contract.
Oh, just a second. It's not a contract. You're talking about you had a mortgage There was an assumable mortgage.
With a prepayment penalty.
Oh, now I understand. We're talking apples
glad
and
you
oranges.
understand.
All right. She had an assumable mortgage, but if they wanted to pay off the mortgage, if she wanted to pay off the mortgage early, there was a penalty. If she got somebody to assume her mortgage on the cabin, then there wasn't a penalty. And you did or did not assume the mortgage?
We didn't assume the mortgage.
You didn't assume the mortgage, so that it cost you $10,000 extra in your way of thinking to sell it to these people.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, let me tell you this, Ms. Schmitz, that's a skewed way of thinking, because all you have to do is find another prospective buyer who'd pay you an additional $10,000. But what you don't do is say, well, I'm going to sell it to you, but I want to be able to use it twice a year for free, forever, because that's dumb.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
It's not the last cabin in the world.
No.
So, how long have you been married?
8 years.
8 years, yeah.
How difficult is marriage?
It's hard.
What?
It's a lot of work.
And you love him.
Yes.
Right? You don't love her.
No.
You just signed on to be married to her
I know.
forever.
That's right.
And our family
Yeah.
warned us
This is
and warned us. I know.
family.
My mom. I know. She knew.
You don't love her. She's a stranger. You don't know if she's a nut. You don't know what her friends are like. You don't know if she's a slob. You don't know, whatever. And you have married her for as long as you have that cabin. And I don't even know if this provision of 2 weeks goes with the sale of the cabin, does it?
No, it was a
it
side.
doesn't.
So, now, I'm really going to try to help you. What's it going to take, Miss Schmitz, to let them out of this stupid deal?
Well, she told me on this.
What is it going to take, Miss Schmitz, to let them out of this stupid deal?
I would like to be paid for the money that I lost.
$4,000.
No, a lot more than $4,000. And today is not about the prepayment penalty.
Just a second. Who do you live with?
Myself.
You have to find something else to do with the next 5 years of your life other than sue these people. Because the contract that you entered into was dumb. The prepayment penalty for your mortgage had absolutely nothing to do with selling them this property with this 2-week provision. It's dumb, and you should finish it today. And you should allow me to help you. I'm prepared to help you. If you don't want me to help you, I don't think you're going to like the judgment today. Do we understand each other? You have to find another purpose for living other than this cabin. You have to let it go. Now, if it's going to cost $4,000 to let them out of this ridiculousness, it will give you the opportunity to spend the next 4 years someplace else, $1,000 a week, celebrating your birthday, Memorial Day, or whatever else you want to celebrate. But you have to let them out of this ridiculous bargain. Because otherwise, what they're going to do is, as much as they love the cabin, they're going to sell it to somebody, maybe even a relative, to get out from under this ridiculous commitment that they made. So it's my job to try to reduce the amount of litigious behavior we have in this country, not expand it. So I am prepared to help you, Ms. Schmitz. Do you want me to help you?
Yes.
Now I'm going to ask you again. How much is it going to cost to let them out of this ridiculous contract?
Your Honor, I'm out $4,000 in addition to the thousands I paid in the prepayment penalty.
They're not responsible for your prepayment penalty. That's your bag. You could have said to the realtor, one of the conditions of a purchaser is someone who is going to assume my mortgage so it won't cost me an additional $10,000. How much did you pay for the property, Ms. Schmitz?
$62,094.
How much did you sell it for?
$131.
So that's not bad, and you had the use and enjoyment of it, and you doubled your money. And even if you say, well, you had a prepayment penalty on your mortgage, take off $10,000, $121. So you doubled your money in 10 years. That's pretty good, right? So I'm going to ask you again, what is it going to cost to let these people out of this ridiculous contract that you both entered into?
Your Honor, I wasn't prepared to talk about the prepayment penalty today.
I just talked about the prepayment penalty. Did I make sense to you?
Yes.
You think it's going to make more sense to retain a lawyer, sue them, continue to sue them, because a lawyer's going to charge you money. I would charge you money at the rate of $500 an hour. So, And a lot more aggravation. So all I'm telling you is you have to find a life other than suing these people. It's over. And I am prepared to help you. I would take me up on my offer.
I will.
Good. So let's go again. How much is it going to cost to let them out of this ridiculous contract? Then I'm going to ask them if they're prepared for it.
Since the maximum I'm allowed to ask for of the $15,000 is $4,000, I guess that's the maximum I can receive.
Well, I'm going to let you amend your complaint to ask for $5 because that's the jurisdictional limit of this court.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to come to you. Ms. Schmitz is prepared to have me enter an order that says, upon the payment of $5,000, that she will declare null and void the requirement that she use the house for 2 weeks a year, and then you will both withdraw these claims. What do you think?
I agree.
That sounds good.
Sounds great.
Very smart.
Now we are.
Okay. You have a copy of the letter of intent that forms the basis of your lawsuit. And you sold it to him for $1,900. And he says Arbla is responsible for the purchase of this 1989 Mitsubishi, payments, what the delivery payment was, and how they were supposed to be made, the rest of the payments, when they were supposed to be made. Nothing about the condition of the car, nothing. That's all it says. So you can't tell me what you told him, you can't tell me what he knew, you can't tell me anything else, because anything else should have been in this contract. Do you understand? Law does not permit you to go outside the four corners of this contract. So you were selling him this car. It blew up after him. No, not as is. You did not say that here. Do you understand that? Good. So the car blew up, but that still doesn't relieve you, sir, of the obligation of paying for the car. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Except you say that she didn't have clear title to sell you the car.
No, ma'am, she didn't.
That when the car blew up, you went to try to take it to a salvage for the purpose of, put your hand down, for the purpose of getting some money, so you were going to pay for it.
Correct.
And you didn't have clear title to the car.
Correct.
May I interject?
Yes.
The person that I purchased it for never took his name off the title, which I was unaware of because the automobile
then
that
he's
I
absolutely right. You did not give him clear title.
But
listen to me.
Automobile dealership that I purchased it from is responsible for transferring the title.
Listen to me. What he's saying is, and he's absolutely right.
I have a copy of the lien right here, ma'am.
I'd like to see it. You did not have clear title to sell him this car.
However, I will say that when I purchased the vehicle, I'd owned that car for 6 years. I purchased this off 3 years before selling it to Rory.
Hugh is the lien holder.
He was the gentleman that I purchased the car from.
Miss Howell,
I owe him no money.
What I'm telling you is you did not give him clear title to this car.
I was unaware of that.
How much did you pay for it?
I paid $2,900 to $3,500. I'm not positive of the amount.
Let's say you paid $2,900 for it. You sold it to him for $1,900. You got $900 from him, which means you had the car for 6 years or so, and it cost you $2,000. Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel badly at all dismissing your claim.
But
not at all. Because this agreement that you just gave me is void because you had no right to sell him the car. And I don't care what you put in it in order to maintain it.
He had a brand new motor. May I please call my father as a witness?
Miss Howell.
Yes.
Is he going to tell me that there wasn't a lien on the car?
No.
Then I'm not interested in what he has to say. Thank you very much. Your case is dismissed.
Amber Smith is suing her sister, Vanessa Franks, for selling her cockatoo and keeping the proceeds.
Miss Smith, this is your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this case is not going to take long, Bird. Don't get comfortable, because I quite frankly don't understand what the defense is in this case. You sold your sister a bird, an exotic bird. What kind of bird was it?
She was a Moluccan cockatoo.
And you charged her how much for the bird?
Only $700 for the bird in the cage, which is normally worth a lot more.
Please. That's not complicated. You charged her $700.
Yes.
And she was going to pay you.
Yes.
Little bits. And she paid you some. How much did she pay you?
She paid me $100 in November.
And then she stopped making payments.
Yes.
Your sister says that you were supposed to come and get the bird because her daughter had some sort of an illness, that she couldn't be in the house with the bird. She told you to come and get the bird. You didn't come and get the bird, so she sold it.
Yes, ma'am.
And sold it for?
$500.
$500. And you took the $500 and you?
Put it in the bank.
That's my question, Miss Franks. If you sold the bird,
yes, ma'am,
you think you're entitled to sell the bird and keep the money instead of paying your sister for the bird?
Okay. In November, my daughter's lungs bled in November of 2004.
I called my sister on the phone, stated to her, I'm either going to have to sell this bird or you can have the bird back. She said, we want the bird back, don't sell the bird. They came for Thanksgiving. You taking the bird? No, we're not taking the bird. Christmas, are you taking the bird?
Miss Franks, is what you're telling me, just put your hand down. So what you're telling me that your daughter's lungs were bleeding because of the bird.
Right.
And you kept the bird in your house between November, when your daughter was diagnosed with this illness?
No, she's been diagnosed since birth.
Well, between the time you were told to get rid of the bird in November and you kept the bird till Christmas?
The bird was actually in my home until right at the beginning of May.
What town do you live in?
Milledgeville, Georgia.
Anywhere in the state of Georgia, do they have an animal rescue?
Not
of course
where
they
I
do.
live, no.
I don't care where you live or not. They do have trees in Georgia, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, if my child had bleeding lungs, and doctor told me in November that I had to get rid of this bird because this bird was causing my child's lungs to bleed, and if I couldn't find someone to take that bird, it is warm in Georgia, isn't it?
For part of the year, yes.
Well, I would hope that it was the right part of the year, because that window would be open, that bird would be gone. Madam, I don't understand where you're coming from. You're told that your daughter's lungs are bleeding because of this bird. And you keep the bird November, December, January, February, March, April, May! Where is your head?
She's my sister at the same time.
Please don't speak. Okay. Listen to me, Miss Smith.
Yes.
Your sister acknowledges that she told you she was going to give you $700 for the bird.
Yes.
I haven't heard anything cogent as to why she should be able to sell a bird that she didn't pay for and not pay for it. Anybody hear a reason? Hearing none, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Bus driver Judy Greenlee is suing fellow bus driver David Smith for backing into her car with his bus. David claims he didn't do it.
All rise.
Smith were employed by the same bus company, a school
Correct.
bus company. And it is your claim that while you were out doing your route, Mr. Smith backed a school bus into your parked car and then took off, damaging your car. You want him to pay for the damage to the car and other related expenses. Mr. Smith says he never touched your car, and he is counterclaiming because he says because you filed these charges against him, he was humiliated at work, he was arrested on the job, and he was ultimately acquitted of those charges. Did you have a trial?
No. The police officer dropped everything.
Okay. And told you to proceed civilly, I assume. So he's got a counterclaim. When did this incident happen with your car?
January 12th of 2004.
And at what time did you leave that day on your bus?
6:30 a.m.
When did you return to the yard?
Approximately 8:15 a.m.
When did you look at your car?
As soon as I got back to the garage.
And what did you discover?
I discovered a dent, and there was rub marks from where my paint had been rubbed off. A part of
Do you have photographs of it?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see the photographs.
And I also have a videotape of the bus actually hitting the vehicle. There's the videotape.
So your car is red?
No, my car is orange.
Orange?
Yes.
Okay. Orange.
Orange.
I assume before you looked at the video, you conducted your own investigation. According to what I read here, a little bit of an investigation on your own. You went around looking at all the buses.
Yes.
And didn't find any of them with any damage.
No.
So what did you do next?
We went on our afternoon routes. David's the only bus that did not come back to the garage that morning. So when we both drove at the same elementary school. He was off of his bus, and I went and I seen the orange paint and the rub mark on the back of the bus. My husband was actually up at the transportation director's office speaking with him, told him the damages I found.
Okay. Don't tell me what your husband said. That's hearsay. But you saw orange paint on Mr. Smith's bus.
Yes.
Did you speak to him?
No.
All right, Mr. Smith. Now, tell me your version of what happened that morning.
I got in my bus around 6:40. I backed my bus up. I had another bus that was to the left of me that I couldn't clear, so I had to get off my bus because my two-way radio did not work on my bus. Got off my bus, went and asked the backup so I could go around. I did my route.
So it's your claim that at no time did you hit Miss Greenlee's car?
No, ma'am.
Now, you were subsequently arrested?
The police come to my work to arrest me for hit and run, but my boss asked them before they arrested me to go and watch the videotape at the transportation office. So my two bosses, the transportation director, the police officer, and myself, all went down. We watched the videotape. The police officer watched the tape twice. He come out, told me he was not going to arrest me.
Just a second, did you watch the tape with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, what do you mean he came out and told you? What is that?
He watched it twice. The first time we watched it together.
Yes.
The second time he watched it with the transportation director. And he come out and said he was not going to arrest me, he was not going to write me a citation, that he would let the insurance companies deal with it.
Okay, can I see the videotape, please?
As you can see, David's entering the bus. Starts backing up. He's having trouble maneuvering the bus back. Stops and pulls up. As you can see, my vehicle to the left. He keeps
That's your
backing.
car? Is that
yes.
your car?
Yes. He keeps backing.
But there was no
There
contact
is
made.
point of impact. Pulls emergency brake. Apparently gets off of the bus for 14 seconds to see what he has hit.
Well, there's certainly a shadow back there now that I see.
Yes. Gets back on the bus and proceeds to take off.
Okay, if I hit the vehicle, why do I sit there for 30 seconds before I pull off?
What are you asking me a question for, Mr. Smith? That wasn't a bus back there. That was a car.
Yes.
What you told me a moment ago, Mr. Smith, was that there was a bus behind you. There was a bus that prohibited you from making a turn. You got off and you spoke to the bus driver and asked her to move. I saw no other bus back there,
The bus
sir.
was to my left.
I saw a car that you came dangerously close to if you didn't hit it.
Yes, ma'am. What I'm saying is I couldn't make my clearance. That's when I got off my bus to go ask the lady if she could back up so I could go and make my clearance to the left.
Not a big deal, Mr. Smith. You just should have accepted responsibility and said, it was a total accident. I didn't mean to hit your car. I will certainly pay for the damage. And be finished with it. Instead
I
of
didn't
making...
hit her.
You did! You hit her car.
No, I did not.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Unfortunately, we have electronics to establish it.
If you look at the tape like the police officer did, you will see I did not hit her car.
You think his eyes are better than mine?
No, you just have to pay close attention to the tape.
Sir, you have something from the police officer that says that you didn't hit her car?
No, ma'am.
You have a statement from the police officer, even though it's hearsay, which says, listen, tell your insurance companies to take care of it. This isn't worth my arresting you for hit and run. Nobody was injured. You're two reasonable people, working people. Let your insurance companies take care of it. That's what the police officer said. He didn't say that you didn't hit her car. Okay, can I see your estimates on having your car fixed, please? Did you have your car fixed?
Yes, I did.
Good. You're not working for the same bus company anymore?
No, ma'am.
Right, good. What year car was this?
2003. I purchased it 6 months prior to it being hit.
Did you receive insurance coverage for it?
Yes. My insurance company paid for it because approximately 14 days after the accident, the bus company's insurance said they could not find who was at fault because they never requested the tape.
Well, what was your deductible?
$450. And then I also had to get a rental car, and that total was $138.57. And I have
Why
my
are
credit
you
card.
suing him for $5,000?
For the deductible, the rental car, the actual damages to pay back the insurance company because my rates are going up because of the accident, and also $2,801.94 in punitive damages for the stress, the mental anguish that I went through over a year and a half of dealing with this incident.
Unfortunately, you don't get paid for that. So your deductible was $450?
Yes.
And you rented a car for $138?
Yes.
It's $588. Could have resolved the whole thing.
I don't owe her a dime.
You do too.
I do
You
not.
hit her car.
I did not hit her car.
And it may, Mr. Smith, be giving you the benefit of the doubt because this didn't look to me as if this was this kind of crash. It looked as if the bus was going very slowly and maybe you just eased into it with the bumper.
But if you could see the damage, even if I eased into it, it's not going to cause that much damage.
You have an expert that's going to testify to that, sir?
I can get one.
What did you think you were coming here for? A tea party today? This is it. You've been hucking around with this lady for well over a year.
No,
Pay her the $588. That's what you owe her. You were wrong. Say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I know that that's sometimes hard, but that's what men do. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have resolved it then. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may.
David Boudreau says ex-girlfriend Valerie Kassler owes for rent and for stealing money from a shared bank account. Valerie says she was entitled to that money.
Mr. Boudreau, you and Ms. Kassler were involved in a relationship, according to what I read in your complaint, for a period of time, and did in fact live together.
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe she moved in with you,
Yes.
and you have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children?
I have a total of 4, and I have 2 that live with me.
So you moved in with Mr. Boudreau with your 2 children?
Actually, we got the place together. He was living at the time with his parents.
Did you sign a lease together?
I was the main person on the lease.
Then the answer is only you signed the lease.
All our information was on there. For
Who signed the lease? Raise your hand.
Both of us did.
Great. As joint tenants?
Yes.
Now, it is your complaint, Mr. Boudreau, that after the 2 of you separated, Ms. Kassler went to a joint bank account and she withdrew some money. That's $1,600.
Yes.
And she had not put that money into the account. That was your money, because
Correct.
this was sometime after you had separated that she closed the account.
Yes.
Ms. Kassler has a variety of reasons why she believes she was entitled to that money, and she's going to explain that to me. When did you move into this apartment together?
November 22nd of 2003.
And when did you move out of the apartment?
May 14th, 2005.
So you lived together for some period of time.
Yes, ma'am.
And your arrangement was, according to what I read, that each of you would put in $800 a month to cover your household expenses.
Correct.
Correct.
When was the last time you put money in that account, Ms. Kassler?
April 3rd.
April of 2005.
2005. I apologize.
At that time, you were still living there, so that $800 covered May rent.
Actually, that was for April's rent and bills.
Is that right?
Yes.
What was the rent?
$1,100.
And you had gas, electric, cable,
Correct.
whatever. So I would assume that at the end of each month, there wasn't much left over from this $800 a month. That $800 a month just pretty much covered the bills
Some
for each
months,
month.
yes.
Okay, good. Now, when did you withdraw this money, Ms. Kassler, from the account?
When I took it all out, it was in June.
Now, Ms. Kassler, you knew that in June of 2005, it had been 2 months since you put any money into the account. And if there was money in the account, it was money that Mr. Boudreau had put in the account. Is that right?
Correct.
So now the ball is in your court, madam, to explain to me why you believe you're entitled to that money.
There were various months, which I have all written out here, that I put in over the $800 to cover the bills, and some months I put in extra to cover the rent because Mr. Boudreau was not working. And Mr. Boudreau also stated that when we moved with him to North Carolina, that if we were not happy, he would pay to move us back to North Carolina. I ended up having to pay to move myself back here. My son was a witness to a lot of these conversations. That's why he is here. But I ended up putting over $2,270 extra in that account to cover bills.
How much extra did Mr. Boudreau put in the account some months?
None.
What you're saying to me, twofold. What you're saying to me is twofold. That the reason you took that money out, stop playing with your papers, Mr. Boudreau.
Oh.
The reason you took that money out of the account is twofold. A, because you thought you put in more than your fair share during the course of the year and a half that you were living together. That's one. And two, if I don't buy that argument, you had to spend money to move you and your family back home, despite the fact that Mr. Boudreau had said that if things didn't work out, he would pay for your moving.
Yes.
Is there any other reason that you want to offer me why you closed that account and took out
Because
the
I
money?
wanted my name off of that account.
Okay. Is that the primary reason why you went to the bank?
I sent them a letter to close the account.
You have a copy of that letter?
Yes, I do.
Let me see the copy of the letter, please.
Right here. And then here's a copy of the email with the bank.
All right, so the first thing that you did was
I sent him
when
an
you
email.
separated.
Whoops.
Okay. At least initially, I get the sense, Ms. Kassler, that what you intended was just to have your name taken off the account. And if that meant that the account had to be closed and reopened in his individual name, that's what you wanted.
Yes.
And then you ask the question, well, what happens to the funds that are in the bank? Because the bank says, it can't just take your name off, the account has to be closed. And you say, well, then I want the account closed. And they say, well, okay, we'll send you the paperwork and you close the account, because you can do that. And then they say, well, what do you want to do with the funds in the account? And you say, well, how are those funds going to be dispersed? And they say, they send you a check, because you're the one closing the account, and you put it in your bank. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I tried contacting him, and he would not answer the phone. Or
What did you try contacting him for,
just
Ms.
to
Kessler?
get my name off of there. And
All
then
right,
he sent
so-
me threatening emails, and I said, because I was going to let the money, extra money that I put into the account go, just to sever contact with him. He sent me a threatening email, and I said,
Did
that's
he?
it.
Can I see it?
How
See
many
what
do you
happens
want?
when you're not nice, Mr. Boudreaux?
I do.
You see what happens when you're nasty? You could have eliminated this whole thing if you weren't nasty. What'd you get nasty for?
Because those emails I sent, most of them were replies back to hers she sent to me. I mean, she called me in 475 times in a little bit over a month.
You have the records
And
of that?
I have the records of that
I
right
see
here.
what you call him 475 times for.
When I first went down there, he had worked on my computer, and I was having computer problems. And some of those,
475 times?
and if you notice, some of those calls were made to the cell phone first, and because he did not answer the cell phone, I called the house phone.
475 times?
Well, I have emails here to bet that
Miss
say,
Kessler.
why won't you answer the phone?
Miss Kessler. 475
that's what it
times.
says.
That's harassing. All right, think about when he says nasty things to you.
I mean, before that, he had threatened my life.
This is disgusting, sir. I don't care what she said to you. I don't care if she called you 475 times. This is disgusting.
And I have a lot more with those words in him. He would say that to me in front of my children.
How long did he say that in front of your children before you moved out?
That's why I got out of there.
But he said it, listen to me, the first time, not the second time. The first time he used this language in front
Too
of my
long.
children.
Too long.
In front of my children.
Too
You're a
long.
tough girl. I mean, I read what you did.
Too long.
I read what you did. You're a pretty tough girl.
I should have got out longer than I did.
Absolutely right. One time, use this kind of language in front of my children, and I'd be gone. If you let him abuse your children that way, that's your problem. They're not his children. You know why you're here, Mr. Boudreaux?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're here because you have a big, fresh mouth. A big, fresh, nasty mouth. I mean, I never saw somebody string these expletives together in sentences like this. Don't you have any other way of expressing yourself, sir? Don't you have any other way of, in a civilized manner, expressing yourself?
I tried every way.
No.
I tried every way.
You
and
think that saying it this, Mr. Boudreaux, you think that using this kind of language is going to get her to stop calling you? You think that this kind of language in a letter is supposed to inspire her to do things in a reasonable way?
I mean, 475 phone calls.
What did she want
emails,
from
messages.
Mr. Boudreaux, what did she want from you, sir?
No, I have no idea.
What did you want
I
from
have
him?
no idea.
Shh, Miss Kessler.
Right now, my kids want
No,
the
no,
dog.
shh. Forget the dog. Just go. Forget it. Go buy him a new dog.
I didn't want
I'm
anything
asking
from
you.
him. I wanted him to leave
so
me
what?
alone.
So what will you call it? Shh. Listen to me. What were you calling him for? Don't think. What were you calling him for?
At first, to get my computer straightened out, because he's the one that formatted it. And there were programs on there that I didn't understand how they worked, and he knew how they worked, and I was trying to get him to help me with them.
At first. After you didn't return your calls because he didn't want to talk to you. At first, then there has to be a second. What was the second reason that you called him?
Stupidity.
Right. And then you took his money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,600. That's all.
Parties ex.
Daniel Holcomb says ex-girlfriend Allison Walters owes for a loan and for money he claims she stole. Allison says she was Daniel's mistress for 3 months.
Mr. Holcomb, you and Miss Waters dated for a period of time, and it is your claim that you made a loan to her when she was in some financial distress with her rent.
Yes.
And then subsequently, she took some money out of your wallet.
Yes.
Without your permission.
Mm-hmm.
The total of that is $800. Ms. Walters says that you were always generous, that there was never any... Stop tapping. There was never any intention to create a loan situation with regard to this rent money, and that you told her, ultimately, that she could have the $300 that she took out of your wallet. When were you and the defendant seeing each other, sir?
I would say late in the year, last year.
I didn't meet you till January.
January? Okay.
Yes.
So about that time.
Around January of 2005?
Mm-hmm.
And how long were you dating?
A few months, maybe till March or April.
It was only till March.
And that's incorrect, because of the loan.
When did you make this $500 loan?
On April 1st.
Tell me about the conversation that you had.
I was at work, and she called me saying that her rent's due. Her check hasn't come from her boyfriend.
From her boyfriend?
Not her boyfriend, but she has like a...
Baby's father.
Her baby's father, yeah.
You get child support from
Yes.
your child's father?
Yes.
For the child?
Yes.
How old is that child?
21 months.
Did you call him on April 1st indicating to him that you were short on rent money?
Yes, I did. And he had always given me money. Okay.
You called him and said what?
That I needed help paying my rent and if I could borrow some money or if he could lend me money because he had always given me money before.
And what did he say to you?
He said, of course.
And he wrote out a check?
Actually, he gave me cash.
How much cash did he give you?
$500. And I paid my rent.
Good. So why don't you pay him back?
Because then later on he told me that I didn't have to pay him back. And I thought because he would always give me money, as he placed an ad, who wants $300 to go for a date because he couldn't get a date, I thought that maybe I didn't need to pay him back.
Miss Walters.
Yes.
You just said to me that you called him up and said, could I borrow $500 from you?
Yes.
And he said yes.
Yes, and then I couldn't pay him back when he wanted me to pay him back. And
Just a sec. Okay. Why couldn't you pay him back?
Well, I offered to pay him back, and he told me I didn't have to.
So when did you offer to pay him back?
Probably in May.
What did he say when you offered him the money?
He told me I didn't have to pay him back.
Tell me where you were.
At my house.
What time of the day or evening?
It must have been the middle of the day because he was at work.
So you called him on the phone?
I think I emailed him.
Well, try to think.
I emailed him because that's how I communicated with him mostly. I told him that I was short on rent and that I should...
No. I'm talking about when you were going to pay him back. You said you had the money.
Oh, I told him that I had the money, that I finally got in the check and that I could pay him back.
So you emailed him again?
Yes.
Ditzy. And what did he say when you emailed him at work and said, I now have the $500?
He told me okay, and then he never came to get it, and I was like, when are you going to come get it? And we weren't talking really at this point anymore. And then eventually I was like, okay, and he never paid it back. I mean, I never paid it back.
Did you think this was going to be easy, this double talk?
No.
Where did he say to you in all of this baloney that you just gave me, madam, you don't have to pay it back?
I have emails probably somewhere saved that I didn't have to pay him back.
Well, did you think that you were coming here today to a cotillion?
No.
If you have emails from him that you say you have saved, saying that you don't have to pay him back, where were you saving them? What were you saving them for? You were going to line a hope chest with them? No. This is where you're supposed to bring them, Miss Walters.
I don't have an actual computer. I use my phone. It has a computer in it. So I couldn't print them out or anything like that.
Does the father of your child visit with him?
Yes.
What does he do?
He's a catering manager.
Well, maybe between the two of you, the child has a chance.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so she owes you $500 for rent, Mr. Holcomb.
Yes.
Now let's get to the other $300. Could you tell me how that came about?
Well,
what do you do for a living, by the way?
Oh, I'm a computer programmer.
What did you have to talk to her about?
In general?
In anything. Did you talk about anything?
Yeah. Okay. We had a relationship.
He cheated on his wife for 3 months. That's what he did.
That's a possibility, Miss Walters. I just want to know if he had a conversation with you about anything.
Yeah.
All right. Let me hear the $300, Mr. Holcomb.
Okay, so after the rent situation, I wanted to get back the money. So I stayed friends with her, hoping to get the money back. And I told her, it's for the allowance for our household. And she understood that, and she was going to give it back to me. But I had to, walk around with kid gloves, you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise she would be, temperamental and say,
temperamental.
Well, she would just kind of give me that impression.
Get to the $300, sir.
Okay, so we went to Black Angus, and we had dinner that night, and we had a few drinks. We went to my car. I put my wallet in the crevice right below the stereo, and then I started my car, and then she grabbed the wallet. And I grabbed it too, because
How many other
her
times
personality, right? So we're tugging, and she's pretty strong. I mean, she grabbed that wallet, pulled it to her, away from me, and she looked aside, and she saw $500. Well, she threw the wallet back at me, stuffed the $500 down her shirt, and I said, "You better give that back to me." I was arguing with her, and she was being teasing and laughing and stuff. And she also had a few drinks, so she was kind of out of it in a sense. And I was like, "Come on, that's my money." I gave her reasons, family, all that.
What
And
family, Mr. Holcomb?
My
wife and children? How
Yes.
many children do you have, sir?
4.
Were you living at home at the time?
Yes.
Are you living at home now?
Right now, I'm not at home, no.
Where are you living now?
Here in Burbank.
Alone?
No, actually with my father.
That's what he told me in the first place.
When did you leave home?
Well, we bought a house in Montana, and we just settled in at the end of this month, last month. And I've been here for about 2 weeks now. And my wife and family are in Montana.
And they intend to stay there?
Mm-hmm.
And you intend to stay here?
I'm not sure yet.
If your wife is smart, she'll stay in Montana.
Yeah.
All right. So she gave you back $200 of the $500 that she stuffed in her blouse?
Yeah, it was a big argument, and she finally threw money at me.
When you drove her home that night, where did you go?
Down
My
to
house.
her studio apartment in Van Nuys.
Did you sleep over?
No.
No.
Have you been back to her apartment since?
Yes.
When?
We still were hanging out.
What does that mean, you're still hanging out?
We were still friends. After I found out he was married and everything that was a lie, I still wanted to be his friend because he wasn't allowed to have any friends. So, and he got along with my kid, and he was really nice. He helped me out, and when I needed help, he bought me a refrigerator, he bought me a camera, he bought me a bunch of stuff, he helped me with bills. He's probably given me, I don't know, $3,000 in total, but he's suing me for this $800.
Why do you think that is?
Because his wife found out.
So?
So she got mad. So he's suing me for what she found out about.
Miss Walters, do you think that Mr. Holcomb's wife would want him to sue you on a television program that is viewed by 10 million people in order to get back a fraction of the amount of money over the course of the few months that you dated?
I've only talked to her on the phone once, but the way he talks about her, probably. She doesn't seem that bright.
She doesn't seem that bright?
No.
Out of the frying pan. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $800. Give him back his money, Miss Walters. That's all.
Bourbon McDaniel is suing her daughter, Glenda Julius, for the cost of her granddaughter's funeral. Glenda says her mother is heartless.
Miss McDaniel, the defendant is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint is really a simple one, and your complaint is that you made 2 loans to your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And she has not paid you back. Your daughter says that these were not loans, they were really gifts. But the matter becomes more complicated because of the nature of the loans that you claim to your daughter. Miss Julius, you had a daughter who was murdered.
Yes, ma'am.
When was she murdered?
September 24th. She was found dead in her room.
In your home?
In her home.
Has the perpetrator of that murder ever been found?
There are 3 people apprehended as of right now for first-degree murder.
How old was your daughter? According to you, Miss McDaniel, you went to where your daughter was living, and your daughter did not have money for a burial.
That's right.
You agreed to loan her the money for the burial.
Yes, ma'am.
Subsequently, your daughter, who was not happy staying in the same house where her daughter was murdered, which is quite understandable because people had not been apprehended at that time, asked if she could relocate, and you agreed to loan her some money.
Yes, ma'am.
So that she could relocate. What was the extent of those 2 sums of money? The funeral was how much?
$4,582.27.
And how much did you advance your daughter to relocate?
$1,487.68.
The matter becomes more complicated because at some point, Miss Julius, you ascertained that there was a crime victim's compensation that you could apply for.
The DA.
The DA?
From Carroll County.
Told you what?
Told me that there was a victims fund relief.
And what was it for?
It was for expenses for Jessica's death. And I have been making payments.
Just a second. Expenses for Jessica's death.
Yes.
Which included her burial.
Which my mother gave as a gift.
Listen to me very carefully.
Which included, yes.
So the state of Tennessee had a fund which provided for the survivors of victims of violent crime to give them money so that they could pay for burial.
Yes.
And other related expenses.
Yes.
You applied for that.
Yes.
And you got a check.
Yes.
How much was the check?
One was $5,300 and the other one was $1,024.
Can I see the paperwork surrounding those two checks, please?
There was a few gas expenses.
Can I see the paperwork for the...
This is exactly what
Bert, I'll take a look
but
at
I
it.
have more different... I have receipts to where I have been paying my mother.
Just a second. They paid you $5,307.27 for the funeral. And then there were other related expenses, moving expenses. Are you telling me that you have proof that you gave some of this money to your mother?
Yes, I have.
I'd like to see it, please.
I have receipts. Here, this is it for money orders. Over the telephone, she was in California. I talked to her, and she said, "Have you been giving her money?" I said, "Yeah." She told me 70 and 40 on her credit cards, and that's exactly. I've been giving her a little bit more.
Well, I see what you're talking about. You gave her $30, $40,
and it started on 11/3. Excuse me.
I understand that, but these are very small amounts of money. When did you get the check from the state?
In April. She told me it was on credit cards, and as long as I was helping her out, there was no lump sum that I was supposed to give her. She knew I would have to go home. I have a headstone to purchase for my daughter, which is $910, and I'm working at a minimum wage job. I moved out because it was so unbearable to live with her in her house.
Let's go back a second. You got this money, which is about $6,500. What did you do with it?
I've been living on it. And also, I have money set aside to buy Jessica's stone and money set aside to go home.
Well,
because
so
I cannot live.
Just a second. You just told me that the stone is $900.
$910.
Fine. And did you order it?
I've already talked to...
Yes. Don't play with this. Did you pay for it?
Not as of yet.
Why not?
Because she started this lawsuit.
What's the name of the company that's going to do the stone?
Memorial Gardens.
Well, you certainly have $900 for the stone because you got $6,500. And my problem with you, Mr. Julius, is because this is not a very difficult case. Whether your mother said to you, as you allege in your answer, it's the least I can do to give you the money for the funeral, right? That's what she alleges you said to her, or not. The good people of the state of Tennessee did not provide this money for you to live on. The good people of the state of Tennessee wanted to ensure that your daughter had an appropriate burial. So you cannot take their money and do what you want with it. You have to take their money and pay for her funeral. That's what it was earmarked for by the state. Because whether you and your mother, according to you, you colluded to defraud the state by her signing papers that said she's going to pay me back, and she really didn't mean that you were going to pay her back, that's a fraud on the state. I can't sanction that. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm working in a dry cleaners. I'm having trouble dealing with the public.
What kind of work did you do before your daughter's death?
I was working in a convenience store, third shift.
Your mother paid for the funeral. According to the claim that you put into the criminal injuries compensation claim for Jessica Dawn Julius, the funeral was $5,307.27. That's what you told the state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the funeral was actually $45.82?
The difference was donations from the school where Jessica went.
What?
I have a paper that states each and every one that gave donation to funeral.
Can I see it, please?
Yes.
The family that Jessica was, Lisa Stevens' family, were there and willing, and the whole town was willing to help out with this. My mother is the one that wanted me to move. I left everything I owned.
Listen to me. I'm not talking about the moving. I'm talking about the fact that you cannot take this money and live on it I have to make a judgment whether the person who actually paid for the funeral, and that's your mother, or you who did not pay for the funeral, are the rightful recipients of this money from the state, which is earmarked for your daughter's burial expenses. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And there were some very nice people from the town who also sent checks in for the funeral. But that's not the issue. The issue really is a very simple one. Whether your mother, at the time that your daughter died, and I believe that she probably did, say to you, this is a terrible time. I don't want you to worry about the funeral. I'll take care of it. Because that's what a parent does. But then when you found out that there was a possibility, because you said that the district attorney told you that there was a fund, that was after your daughter was buried, correct?
Yes.
So after your mother laid out that money, and probably would not have sought to recoup it because you have limited circumstances, that'd be a fair statement. But after she found out that you were going to get this money from the state for the funeral, the right thing for you to do was to give it back to her.
I've been giving her close to $1,500.
No. That
so
may
far.
have been fine, Miss Julius, giving her $30, giving her $70, until you got $6,500. Once you got $6,500, you had to say, Mom, clean up the credit card, pay it off, because that's what this check was supposed to be used for.
Yes,
Do we
ma'am.
understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Let's not pursue this any further. Your family has had sufficient amount of sadness to last for a lifetime. So you have the money, and even if your mother is awarded the $5,000, you still have money left over for the headstone, and then some. Right? Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Crystal Hardison is suing fellow motorist Robert Jarvis for vandalizing her Ford Explorer by kicking it. Crystal claims her mother witnessed the incident.
Ms. Hardison, what kind of car do you drive?
It's a 2005 Ford Explorer.
95 Mitsubishi Galant.
What was the date of this incident?
June 2nd.
And you were going into a drugstore to get a prescription filled?
Exactly.
And what were you going to do there, Mr. Jarvis?
I was pulling in to get her my fiance a drink and a candy bar.
Was she with you?
Yes.
And you were both going to the same store, so you pulled in first.
Yes.
And it is your claim that Mr. Jarvis intentionally not only spit on your car, but also dented it.
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis says he might have spit on it, not intentionally, but he certainly didn't dent it. And your mother was with you.
Exactly. And my 11-month-old son.
Well, he's not here to testify, but your mother certainly is. When you went into the store, Miss Hardison, your mother remained in the car.
Exactly.
And when you went into the store, did your fiancée remain in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
She pulled in first.
She was already parked.
Tell me what she was doing, Mr. Jarvis.
Well, as I was pulling in, I was waiting on her for about 2 to 3 minutes while she was brushing her hair with the door open in the parking place.
So you were waiting to pull in because she had the big door open for this SUV, brushing her hair.
Yes, ma'am.
How long were you waiting?
2 to 3 minutes tops.
Did you honk the horn?
No, I was just sitting there waiting to get in, being patient.
Why were you brushing your hair?
I'm pretty vain. So before I go anywhere, I always put my makeup on, brush my hair.
You were going to pick up a prescription.
Exactly. And that's my nature. If I'm going to a local store, I'll put clothes on, do my hair, and put my makeup on.
Hadn't you done all that before you went in?
I sure
Before
did,
you
but
got
I
into
just
the
wanted
car?
to make sure everything was straight.
Didn't you see Mr. Jarvis waiting for you?
At the time that I opened my door to get my brush out my purse, no, I didn't.
But there came a time when you did see him waiting for you.
I saw a front end of a car behind mine, yes.
And you continued to finish brushing your hair and then you put the brush back?
No. Once I saw the front end of the car, I said, oh, he's waiting, and I closed my door and went directly into CVS.
What happened when you came out?
I got to my driver's side door, and I saw there was spit on the window. I opened my door. I said, Mom, somebody spit on my window. And she can tell you the rest.
Step up, please. What is your last name?
Durante.
Tell me what happened that day on the 2nd of June in the parking lot.
Okay, on the 2nd of June, my daughter had to go to the pharmacist to pick up a prescription. And she got out of the car, opened the passenger side.
That's we got past the fact that she was
Okay.
brushing her
When
hair
she-
to make sure she looked perfect.
Okay.
Never know who you're going to meet in the pharmacy.
Exactly.
Yes, Your Honor. Okay, Crystal came out. She says, Mom, who spit on my car? I said, don't worry. I got his tag number. I was sitting in the car on the passenger side watching an incident on Route 1 to my right, And I see this man walk up to the car and just cover the window with spit. I said, I'm going to get his tag number. I went to get my purse. When I went down to get my purse, the whole car, Judge Judy, just like, yes. I looked up, I saw him, I heard his door, bam, slam. He was going, he closed his door and walked behind his car and got into the driver's side.
Okay, so a passenger door slam, and then he walked around to get into the driver's side?
Yes.
And the passenger side door was where your car was?
Yes.
Got it. Now, do you have any proof of damage to your car?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Because, Mr. Jarvis, I'm going to save you the trouble, sir. According to your answer, you were having sinus problems that day, so
Yes,
you
ma'am.
spit.
Yes.
You don't know where it landed.
No, I didn't have no intention of spitting on the vehicle. No.
It was just a bad sinus.
Yes. I had sinuses all
And
like that.
you caused no damage to the plaintiff's car.
Absolutely not.
Now I'd like to see the... Okay. See, I'm going to save you all that trouble.
Your car's green.
My car's green.
But your boot isn't damaged.
And besides, my car door don't go that high.
It may not have been your car, sir.
And I was never on that side of the vehicle. I was driving.
Mr. Jarvis, what you're asking me to do is to say to this lady that she's lying. Now, common sense, which is really what we're about here, suggests to me that you were annoyed at this young lady.
No, actually, I wasn't.
Well...
I was being patient.
Well, listen. Then you are the only one I know who, under those circumstances, wouldn't be annoyed. I would be infuriated.
But to be cussed and belligerent...
Just a minute. I would be infuriated if I was sitting there patiently and somebody was not just putting a baby in a car, because that you wait for, you know, adjusting a car seat or whatever, but somebody standing there with an open door, primping and brushing their hair while I'm waiting to get into a parking space would rile that out of me. I can't even tell you what it would do to my husband.
Can I speak to her?
Sure.
Can I have her come up?
If you want to.
I'd just like to say that night when the police contacted us, the only thing that they said was that he spit on the window. When he called back to the police department, the police officer said that this was ridiculous and dropped it. 30 days later, we received it stating that there was damage. Why that night was there no record at the police department?
I
of
have
any
no
damage?
idea. Maybe they couldn't see it.
And she drove all the way home and the spit stayed on the window?
Listen to me.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Does she listen to me? my
Free
dear.
money. That's
I'm
what they're
speaking.
trying to get.
Does she look psychotic to you? No, listen to me. Not the daughter who was primping, who has to comb her hair before she goes to pick up a prescription. I'm talking about her mother.
I'm going to tell you, I'm a nurse. People are psychotic all the time and they don't
Listen to me. Well, listen. I've been around twice as long as you have. This lady is not psychotic. This lady did not take down your tags and report this matter to the police because she was having a psychotic episode. That's my judgment. Now, let me see how much it costs to fix your car.
Okay. I have two estimates.
You have a 10-year-old car.
$578 for Windex is a little ridiculous.
Oh, it has nothing to do with Windex.
There's
It has-
no dent caused by him. That is definite.
That's just trying to get free money, is what it is.
I never got out that car, so nobody was ever on that side of the car at any point. I was in that passenger side of that car.
Nobody suggested that you did any damage to the car, madam. Cheaper of the estimate is $369.80. Is that right?
Yes.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $369.80. That's all.
Amy Evans is suing her ex-boyfriend, Timothy Beeler, for an unpaid loan to pay his rent and for the accrued interest on the loan. Timothy is countersuing for harassment and defamation of character.
Miss Evans, Mr. Beeler was a friend of yours, and you took out a loan for him, very high-interest loan, because he was in need of money. You want him to pay you back. The defendant says that you gave him money. He told you not to take out such a high-interest loan. You did it anyway. And he's got a counterclaim for some nonsense because you're angry at him for not paying back the loan, so he says you've been harassing him for the money and telling people that he's a deadbeat, right?
That's correct.
Well, you probably are. Truth is a perfect defense. Why did you take money from her?
I didn't take money from her, Your Honor. It was a...
Just a second. You did take money from her.
I did. She offered...
No, listen to me. You did take money from her. It is my judgment as to whether that is a loan or a gift. My question to you is, why did you take money from her?
We had been seeing each other, whatever was going on with her, in her relationship with her husband or whatever. We started talking again, and she had stayed over a couple nights. We were pretty close. We were getting along pretty good. I was telling her my situation about my roommate. He skipped out on me, left me kind of hanging. I was a little short on my rent and whatnot. She said she'd try and help me out. She came up with some money. Yeah, she handed it to me, and I took it. It was a gift. I didn't know that I was forced to stay in bed.
Just a second.
And everything was cool, and we started talking about our relationship and stuff and what we were going to do. Well,
Tell me about that, sir.
What?
I'm confused because I read the papers, yours and hers. Tell me, when she stayed over at your house, did you stay in the same room?
Yes.
Did you stay in the same bed?
Yes.
I'm not paying Amy for anything. She gave me the money with the hopes of rekindling our romance, which has been over for years, according to you. Now, if it had been over for years, sir, why did you share a bed with her? Stand up straight, please.
Why did I share a bed with her?
Yeah, you said your romance has been over for years.
We were hanging out. We were seeing each other.
Hanging out is not sharing a bed.
Well, kissing and other things that go in that matter are. So, yeah, we shared a bed.
But you, listen.
Yeah,
but
we did.
Then you, listen to me.
Well.
Listen to me. Then you lied to me here when you wrote in this answer, she gave me money in the hopes of rekindling our romance, which had been over. So that's a lie.
Because.
Just a minute. That's a lie then, based upon what you just told me.
No.
That is absolutely.
Because when I told her I didn't want a relationship no more, she took off, didn't call me or nothing. She started telling a bunch of people that I was a deadbeat and all that.
You are a deadbeat.
Well, whatever. That's your opinion.
How old are you? How old are you?
34.
34. If you're 34 and you can't afford to pay your rent and you borrow money or you take money.
Took it.
Take money.
Yeah.
I'll decide in a second whether you owe it to her. Take money from a woman who you say the relationship is over, and yet you share your bed with her, and according to you, talk about a relationship with her, and then take money from her. That makes you a deadbeat. And it makes you an amoral deadbeat. Because what you're doing is saying, listen, I need some money. She's going to give me some money. So I'll string her along. You know, I'll hug her and I'll kiss her and I'll sleep with her. And I'll sleep with her. We'll talk about our relationship.
I'm speaking.
I don't think so.
It takes two.
I'm speaking.
It takes two.
Did she take money from you?
No.
Your Honor, if I may.
Just a second. Do I look like I need any help from you?
No,
Sit down.
ma'am, you don't.
Sit down. You kissed her. She kissed you.
Right.
You hugged her.
Yeah.
She hugged you.
Okay. What's the point?
You took money from her.
Yeah.
She took money from you.
No.
Right. How much money does he owe you, this idiot? How much?
With interest, he owes me $3,900.
Just a second. You don't get any points from me for being an idiot. Okay?
Okay.
And if you take out an interest-bearing loan, and the interest on the loan is 87%, you'd get zero sympathy from me. Now, how much money did you give him?
$2,500, Your Honor.
That's what he's going to give you back. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all. Step out.
But, Your Honor, I had to pay $1,100 interest.
You shouldn't have taken out a loan for him, madam. You gave him $2,500. This idiot had no concept that he was going to have to pay you back $3,900.
He knew it was a loan, Your Honor.
He knew it was a loan.
And he knew about the
and
interest.
He's going to pay you back.
He was supposed to go back to work and pay me back.
Listen to me. He was supposed to go back to work. He didn't go back.
He was working.
I was working.
He was working with me. She was calling and texting.
Oh, all he did was
Listen to me.
he works everybody he knows. That's all he does.
Question?
No.
Very good. He owes her $2,500. The rest of it is her own stupidity. Goodbye.
26-year-old Vanessa Gravenstein and 25-year-old Karina Irwin are suing their former friend, Brian Lewis, for embezzling money from an art collective.
Ms. Gravenstein, according to the complaint that I've read, you and the co-plaintiff met the defendant. You were interested in starting something called an art collective. And I assume what that means is a place where young people can show off their art. Is that right?
And also produce their art and be inspired by each other.
And what you did was you and the co-plaintiff were involved in setting up events to raise money to create this art collective. And the two of you worked together along with Mr. Lewis. You raised over $4,700 at these various events, something that Mr. Lewis does not deny. And you put it in the bank. And Mr. Lewis took the money and spent it. Mr. Lewis's defense is that it was always intended to be his money. That's your defense.
Essentially.
Well, Mr. Lewis, I want you to explain that to me, sir.
9 months ago, I was starting a venue
to have
Starting a
venue space for concerts, art showings, and so forth. And over the course of about 9 months, I looked for a location to house that.
I thought you said 9 months ago you had a venue space.
No, 9 months ago we did not.
9 months ago, then you had nothing. You had an idea.
We had an idea.
Keep going.
And over those 9 months, I started a business called...
What was the business?
The business name was Is Village, and it was filed by the Secretary of the State of Oregon.
So now you had an idea that you gave a name to, and you filed a registration of the name. So far you have an idea and a name, and nothing else. Keep going.
I basically looked for individuals to help me create this venue space that was supposed to be owned by myself, and met with friends and other individuals, and they aided me in organizing different events.
Who aided you?
These two individuals and a rotating group of individuals that came in, came out.
Keep going.
We held events, generated money, and because the business belonged to me, it was put in my personal bank account and was my personal
Why was it put
property.
in your personal bank account?
Because the business was mine, I started the group, the money was essentially mine from the get-go.
No, that's not true. You're an embezzler. Absolutely. You brought a group of people together in order to create a dream that you inspired others to act upon. In order to do this Is Village. That's why they went to work for you, and that's why, according to you, the other people who you spoke to became involved in creating the events that brought in money, which would ultimately provide you with a venue. Now, what did you spend the money on, Mr. Lewis?
When I was no longer satisfied with the direction of the business that I started, I followed up on interests, business interests, friends of mine, a limousine.
So you spent the money on yourself?
I wouldn't say that, but...
Well, I would. They weren't investing in a limousine. That's not why they worked to create this, so that you could invest in a limousine? Outrageous. You're outrageous. I'm surprised you didn't notify the police. Did you?
We notified you instead.
Well, his conduct is outrageous, and you should have notified the police. He's an embezzler. And I wouldn't go into a business with you, Mr. Lewis. What you did is outrageous. The only problem is you're not entitled to this money. I mean, my problem is people supported you and gave money and contributed because they were looking forward to some place where they could show their wares. If I gave you this money and you used it on yourself, you're no better than he is.
Exactly. So we feel like we've learned from this situation, and we're going to get a new business and a new business name.
I want to see how much money you collected and how much you put in his bank. Do you have the records?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it, please.
Yeah.
Ever been arrested, Mr. Lewis?
No, ma'am.
How old are you?
21?
Better go back to business school.
Definitely considering it.
I want to see where the money went in.
The deposits are highlighted and circled, and then we wrote next to it which benefits that money came from.
Oh, that's fine. As soon as you get me the bank records, not these, the bank records. Do you understand? You mean you can't get them because they're in his name? I will sign an order for the bank to turn those over to you, unless he does. You prepared to turn those over?
More than happy to do it.
Fine. As soon as we get those, and you have a venue with a signed lease, the check will be made payable to that venue. Do you understand? That comports with the reason that not only you, but other people became involved in this vision. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Grow up, sir. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in jail. That's all.
Kathleen Bowers is suing her former friend, Lana Batman, for damaging her Dodge Durango when she backed into a pole.
Miss Batman, you will forgive him, won't you?
Sure.
Good. Miss Bowers, this used to be your friend. She borrowed your car. She had an accident. You wanted to pay for the damage to your car. Miss Batman does acknowledge that she had an accident with the car. She said you should have used your insurance, and if you didn't have good enough insurance, that's your problem. That's pretty much your defense.
Yep.
Right?
Right, correct.
How'd you damage her car?
I pulled into a carport trying to move, and when I pulled out, I was trying to look around the corner, and it hit the carport pole.
So the accident was your fault?
Yeah.
So how does that translate into use your insurance, and if you don't have insurance, you pay for it?
Well, if you don't have the proper insurance, why are you loaning your car out?
Just admit she had proper insurance. You have liability?
Yes, actually, my mother had bought me the car, so my mother had full coverage insurance on the car. And at the time we were going to file the claim, Lana would not call her agency, because first we were going to try and go through hers. And so she came over and we discussed it, and she told me that since she had borrowed the car, she wanted me to pay half because I had lent it to her. We were going to do it out of pocket, so the insurance, because it was going to go onto her insurance, my mother's insurance, and yeah, so we were going to try to do it outside of there.
You were going to try to do it without using your insurance.
Yes.
Because certainly if you used your mother's insurance rates were at risk, and if you used hers, her insurance rates were potentially at risk.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know because Lana wouldn't get a hold of her insurance for me.
Whatever. You have an estimate?
I do.
Right. I called my insurance.
And?
And they said the insurance follows the car, not the person.
Okay.
That was
Miss
a week after I had it
Just a
fixed.
second. Miss Batman, let me try to explain it to you, because I know that you really probably think you're right.
I am right.
Miss Batman, I want you to listen to me.
She shouldn't have loaned her car out.
I want you to listen to me carefully.
I didn't ask to borrow the car.
Listen to me. I want you to listen to me
She
carefully.
felt guilty.
Try listening. Okay, listen.
I'm listening.
Okay.
Can I say something?
First, you have to listen. I understand. Hey, listen. We live in a world of responsibility.
Right. And I'm very
Just listen. Try not to plug up. Try to open up and listen. If you didn't want to accept the responsibility of using her car with caution, then you should not have taken her car. Now, based upon what you told me, you drove the car negligently, not on purpose, but you weren't looking. Because certainly if you weren't looking in the right place, or if you misjudged space, that's your fault. It's not fair for you to say, well, it's true that I caused the damage to her car, and I want her to bear the responsibility of fixing the car with her insurance, despite the fact that we all know that once you put in a claim for insurance, your premiums go up for sometimes up to 5 years. And that, Miss Batman, is just wrong.
Can I
It's
say
not thinking. I know that you have something you want to say, but I want you to try to absorb what I've said to you as an adult. Now I will hear you.
Okay. First, I didn't borrow the car. She was supposed to help me move.
Shh, no, listen to me.
No,
Listen to
she was supposed to help me move, and she was going to drive the car. I didn't want to drive her car. She was sick, and she couldn't help me, as usual. And so she said, well, here, why don't you borrow my car? Because, you know, I feel really guilty. So I said, no, I'll take my dad's truck. And she said, no, take my car. Just take my car.
What does that have to do with what I just said to you?
Well,
how old are you?
30.
Listen to me.
But
If you're
I'm
30,
not finished.
if you're 30, but I'm going to stop you right. If you're 30, and if you say, no, I'll take my dad's truck, the reason you didn't want to take her car is because you didn't want to be responsible for it.
I didn't want to
Listen to
drive
me. You didn't want to be responsible for it.
Right, but she should have been responsible in saying, this is insured under my name. It's under my mother's insurance. You won't be covered.
Miss Batman, if you're 30 years old and somebody says, take my car, and you say, no, I don't want to take your truck, you're forcing me to take your truck, you're holding a gun to my head, I'm going to take your truck, but I'm not going to be responsible for it. If you take her car, you are responsible for acting in a way that doesn't cause damage to the car. And if you cause damage to it, that's your responsibility. Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,260.
Thank you very much, Judge Judy.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Eric Enham says ex-girlfriend Michelle Hamlin owes for breaking a lease and an unpaid loan. Michelle is countersuing for vandalism to her car and punitive damages.
How old are you, Mr. Enham?
18.
And you?
21.
You have 2 children?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are they?
1 and 4.
And Mr. Enham is not the father of either of those children?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Enham.
Yes, ma'am.
According to the complaint that you filed in this case, you met the defendant and subsequently decided to lease a house with her. Both of you to the lease. She moved in, subsequently moved out with her 2 children. You want her responsible for her half of the rent for the duration of the lease.
Correct.
Ms. Hamlin says that you are a violent, vicious person, that you abused her and her children.
There's a lie, Your Honor.
Shh, just a minute. And she is counterclaiming. That's what the case is about. All right. When did you sign this lease?
January 18, 2005.
And when did she move out?
May 28th, 2005.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding her moving out.
She moved out in April.
Why did she move out? You don't know. Why did you move out?
I moved out because he was abusive to me and my children. He would hit my daughter, spank her when she would cry, give her bruises. He would hit my son when he would do something wrong. He just really abused me, and that's why I moved out. So
I didn't ask you for any
Yes,
information,
ma'am.
sir. Are you still living in the house?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Do you plan on staying in the house?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a new roommate?
No, ma'am.
Plan on getting one?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I don't want to go through the same thing again.
So you can afford the rent yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you get any child support for your children?
I do, Your Honor, but I do not receive it.
You mean there's an order for child support?
Yes, but I do not receive it.
Why not?
The dad's not working, and he's just not responsible.
Do you get any other assistance for your children?
Nope. Just me working, that's it.
Did the children visit your family?
Yes, they do.
You know her family, I assume. Are you related to her?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
How are you related to her?
I reside with Michelle's mother. We've been together for 7 years, and I can testify of an harassment at Michelle's place of employment on one occasion.
What's your name?
My name is Jeffrey Bell, Your Honor.
Mr. Bell, do you remember the date of the alleged harassment?
It was shortly after Eric damaged
Give me a month.
May 2005. Sorry about that.
And tell me what you observed in May of 2005.
I witnessed Eric and two young ladies at Michelle's restaurant. After they had their meal, I watched Eric have his arm around this young lady. I considered it taunting Michelle at work. After they were close to the door, the two young ladies started arguing with the hostess and manager, stating that poor service, they want the manager's telephone number. I got up from my seat. I approached Eric right at the door.
Now, Mr. Bell, don't talk to him.
Yes, ma'am. And I did walk up to him and told Eric that I'm sure that you have some things to work out with Michelle, but please be cool. I shook his hand like a gentleman, and the next thing we know, the car's being vandalized, and if I knew that those children were abused...
Just a second, Mr. Bell.
Yes, ma'am.
If you knew that the children were abused, what would you do?
I would have wrung his neck.
What about her?
I would have taken care of her, too.
What
Your
about her, Mr. Bell? She's the mother. I read.
I love her. Your
Just a second.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
may love her.
Yes, I do.
But I read her complaint, and I'm not so interested in this half rent that Mr. Enman wants her to pay.
Yes, ma'am.
Because right now he's living in the house, and if he wants to get a roommate, he can do it. He told me a moment ago he has no interest in doing that because he can afford the rent.
Yes, Your Honor.
So he's going to stay there. So I'm not so interested in his complaint. I'm interested in her answer and her counterclaim. So I think that if you're going to be mad at somebody, if you believe any of this was going on,
Yes.
and I'm not so sure.
Okay. May I explain just one
No,
more
don't
point, please?
explain anything yet, because I'm going to get to some dates.
Yes, ma'am.
Your girlfriend's daughter, that's who this is, your girlfriend's daughter
Yes, ma'am.
says, in March of 2005, he was fired from his job.
No, I quit.
You quit your job.
Correct.
Whatever, fired. When he came home, we started to argue about money. He walked away from me and got into his car. So far, okay? They were arguing. He got into his car to leave.
Yes.
Prior to that, a few weeks after they had moved in together, so in February, they had a fight, according to her. He punched me repeatedly in the head, slapped me in my legs as hard as he could. I attempted to get away and ran outside, but he dragged me back into the house and continued to beat me. This was all in front of the children. This is what she says.
Yes, Your Honor.
All in front of the children. I pleaded with him to stop, and he finally left. A few weeks later, in March, evidently they're still together. All the while, he's abusing her children and abusing her, beating her, none of which you saw any evidence of, by the way. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Then in March, he was, according to her, fired from his job. He came home, they started to fight. He walked away to get into his car. So he walked away. Now, this is somebody that has beat her, dragged her into the house, punched her. So instead of saying, oh, he's leaving, I can get my stuff and my children and get out of here, right? Let's see what she does. Want to know what she says she does?
Yes, ma'am, please.
I followed him to finish talking. I knocked on his window to get his attention. You find that odd, Mr. Bell?
At this point, yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay. He jumped out of the car and he hit me. I ran into the house and locked myself in our bedroom with my children. When I wouldn't let him in, he kicked down the door and threw me on the bed and continued hitting me. Just a second, now you getting mad at him?
Yes.
I don't believe her. Now, there's got to be something wrong with somebody who has family at home. You look like a very nice man. You live in the same town?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So we have somebody who has a mother who's clearly close to her. You have somebody who stands in what we call in French, in loco parentis, like a father to her, because you say you love her. Lives close by, who she can go to. So according to Ibiza, that I assume you see her regularly.
Yes.
Right? She's still with him.
Yes.
They have another fight, but he leaves. He doesn't hit her. He doesn't touch her. She runs out of the house after him because she's not finished talking. Doesn't sound right to me. Does it sound right to you, sir?
Well, young people act a little differently, but to me, no, Your Honor.
All right. And we're still talking March.
Yes, ma'am.
She didn't leave in March.
No, she did not.
When did you leave?
Like the middle of April.
Your counterclaim says on April 29th, in a fit of rage, he came to my job and saw me talking to one of my coworkers. But according to you, he had your daughter in the car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what was he doing with your daughter in the car?
He was taking care of her while I was at work.
Right. And he took care of both of your children while you were at work.
He picked them up from the daycare. He chose to pick them up from daycare.
How often did he pick them up from daycare?
Mostly every day.
So after, according to you, he's been abusing your children since February, March, April. You allow him, unsupervised, to go and pick up your children? You understand me, Mr. Bell?
Yeah, I see your point, Your Honor.
Something doesn't ring true, Mr. Bell.
Up to this point, yes, Your Honor.
Well, that's the testimony so far. I'm practically finished with the complaint and the answer. I mean, I don't have voluminous papers here. I have somebody who says that he abuses her children, that he spanks her infant, spank her so hard it would leave bruises, and yet she allows him to be with her children unsupervised. If I believe it's true, she's as guilty as he is. She's the mother. They're her children.
Yes.
Her job is to protect those children. Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
You chose, as a baby, to have 2 children with somebody who is totally irresponsible, who doesn't take care of his children, and then according to you, and I'm questioning the truthfulness of what you say, you hook up with somebody who beats your children, and you stay with them.
He beat your children, you tell her. He beat your children.
Go ahead.
He beat my children, and I was scared to leave in the first place because I had bought him a shotgun, and I didn't know what he was capable of doing with that gun.
When did you buy him a shotgun?
Like in March.
Just a second. You told me that the first time he hit you and beat you was in February. Why did you buy him a shotgun in March? I'll get to you in a second. Why would you buy him a shotgun in March?
Because he wanted it to have protection from the kid's father.
Mr. Bell, don't buy everything that she's telling you, sir.
May I speak just for a couple words, please?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. I know that there's been numerous complaints against Michelle's children's first father with Eric and Michelle when they first got together. Numerous harassments over telephone, verbal assaults.
You mean by the father of these 2 children?
Yes, and they were
Go
both in fear from the beginning.
Just a minute. Did she confide that in you, sir?
Oh, yes.
That the father of her 2 children was harassing?
Yes.
Threatening?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you that he was?
No.
Right. Now I'll hear you. Because I know if I don't get you up here, we may have an accident. Okay. Who are you?
I'm Anna, and one of the
Anna, you have a last name.
Arredondo.
Arredondo?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
On May 22nd of 2005, Michelle had came over to discuss some things with Eric, and
how do you know these 2 people?
I know these. I have met Michelle prior because they came over in my home, and I met her kids.
Just a second. So you're his friend?
Yes, I'm his friend.
How do you know him?
I've known him for 6 years.
Okay, so now you're going to May.
Yes, in May, on May 22nd, 2005, Michelle came over to Eric's home, and I was heading towards the kitchen, and I overheard her tell Eric.
Just one second. May 22nd, you went to his house?
Yes, sir.
Did you go with the police?
No, I went with a friend.
What did you go there to discuss?
Discuss about my stuff in the house still.
Discuss your property?
Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about somebody who beats you, beats your children, and you, without police protection, voluntarily went to his house.
Yes.
You got where I'm going, Mr. Bell?
I do, Your Honor.
Good. And what happened, Miss Arredondo? What did you hear?
I heard her, and I quote, if you take me to court, I'm just going to lie and tell the judge that you hit me. And Eric said, go ahead, she's just going to see that you're lying. So that's all I can witness.
That's a lie. That's a lie, Your Honor.
I don't think so.
Eric Enham claims ex-girlfriend Michelle Hamlin broke their apartment lease and failed to repay his loan.
Okay. All I can do is look at conduct. According to you, you entered into an abusive relationship with someone with whom you had 2 children. Then you went to live with him.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, he started to abuse you as soon as you signed the lease in this house together. Seriously abusing you, beating, punching, hitting, kicking, but also did the same thing to your 2 infant children. And you continued to live with him. And when you had another fight, he wanted to leave the house, you followed him outside. And then he beat you again. And then you still continued to live with him and allowed your children to live with him. And not only did you allow your children to live with him, but you allowed him unsupervised care of your children. He was the caretaker of your children while you were working. Now, when for the first time did you report his abusive conduct to you and your children to the police?
I never reported it.
Why not?
Because I was scared if I did report it that he would do something else.
Your Honor, we haven't got to the part where he was driving recklessly with a child in the back of the car, doing donuts in a parking lot at her work.
Did you see that, Mr. Bell?
Myself, no.
So I just asked you if you saw that.
I did not see that.
Okay. Now, Mr. Edmonds says that he had the child in the car and he went to get her because why?
Because she said she was going to a party that night and going to leave me with the kids.
And what did you say to her?
So let her know that you're not, you need to be home with your kids.
And she said?
She said, no, I'm not. I'm taking my kids. I'm going out.
I'm taking my kids and I'm going out.
Correct.
So what did you do?
I went to her work.
And you saw her doing what?
Being all over.
Listen to me. Go ahead.
I saw her being all over 2 other guys in the parking lot.
So you got mad?
Correct.
Were you driving around in a reckless manner in the parking lot with the child in the car?
No, ma'am.
What did you do?
I told her to get in the car and go home. And when we got to our place of residence, I pulled in the garage and the police came right behind us.
Because she had called the police?
Correct.
Had you called him that day to tell him you were going out?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you tell him you were going to be home? Don't look down there. When did you tell him you were going to be home?
Like about 12 or 1.
In the morning?
Yeah.
And who was supposed to watch the children till 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning?
I told him that I was going to go to a friend's house and watch a movie and that I would come and pick up my daughter and take her with me. He told me that...
Just a second. Where was your other child?
My other child was with his dad.
When did the other child go with his father?
In the morning time.
This is the same father who you were afraid of and you bought him a shotgun to protect the 2 of you from?
Yes, ma'am.
You got a lot of work to do, Mr. Bell. Her judgment is impaired. You don't get it. Her judgment is impaired.
She's young, and I watched her mature from a teenager to a very good mother. And she is a very good mother, Your Honor.
Impossible! Impossible if I believe what she wrote in her answer, Mr. Bell. Impossible if I believe her that she allowed her children to be in a circumstance with this man who abused her children. That makes her the worst possible mother. The worst possible mother. To sit there and watch a stranger to the children, she says, beat her baby with bruises, and you're telling me matured into a very good mother? Your judgment is impaired.
I believe sometimes, Your Honor, that love is blind. It may be
Love may be blind, and there are women who stay in abusive relationships. She clearly is one of those people who stayed, at least in her first relationship, which was abusive, although she continues to have the lunatic that she described to me before that required protection by a shotgun. She allowed that person to take her infant child. Impaired judgment. And I don't believe her. I don't believe that she was the victim of the kind of abuse she ascribes to the plaintiff. She filed not one police report. You saw no evidence of abuse on either her or her children. She didn't even file a police report after she moved. As a matter of fact, after she moved out and she was free and clear of this horrendous person who beat her and her children, she went back to his house. Is that the action of somebody who's afraid? Okay. Listen to me, sir. You get not a dime from her. You're living in a house. You're happy living there. What you are required to do in this kind of circumstance is to mitigate your damages, which means you put an ad in the internet, you put an ad in the local paper for a roommate. You chose not to do that. That's wonderful. You can afford it. Live there. I don't believe your allegations with regard to your counterclaim, madam. And I think that you have to. If you made 2 children, you better get smart. Because if on the long shot that anything that you say here was true, you have so far made 2 very poor choices. And you have a responsibility to your 2 children to choose more wisely with regard to mates that you select, or else make up your mind that you're not going to have a mate for a while and you're going to rely on this gentleman and your mother as family to help raise your children. And grow up. That's all.
Diane Cowan is suing her son, 23-year-old Kenneth Cowan Jr., for car payments and for stealing her tax refund from their shared bank account.
Mrs. Cowan, this is your son. Your lawsuit claims 2 things. First, that you had an arrangement with your son wherein he would use your car and make the payments on it while he was using it until he purchased his own car. You claim that with regard to that portion of your complaint, he did make some payments, didn't pay them all, and ultimately you sent somebody down, your fiancé?
Yes.
Down to pick up the car because he had moved to a different state. So you want him to pay some $1,000 that he should have paid on the car. Second part of your complaint, which I really believe, based upon what I read, is what you're complaining about. You just tacked on, is that you and your son shared a joint bank account. At some point, he withdrew $2,000 from that joint bank account, and he withdrew that money, which was from your tax refund, because you claimed him as a dependent for last year. And he says he's entitled to that money because he was going to file his own tax return as a single individual, but since you had already claimed him as a dependent, he couldn't claim himself. So he took the $2,000 because he said you weren't entitled to it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct, Ms. Cowan, that but for the withdrawal from the bank, we wouldn't be bothering with any money he might owe on the car?
No, we had made a verbal agreement, and I told him that once he took the vehicle to Texas, that he would be responsible for the payments.
Did you have that agreement with your mother?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Fine. At that time, were you going to school, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you also working?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you working full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
Who was supporting you?
I was on academic scholarship and receiving money from Pell Grants.
Did your mother send you any money?
She may have given me a total of $500.
Okay. Is it correct, Ms. Cowan, that for the year 2004, your son was basically self-supporting?
No.
Well, how did you support him?
Okay, by me being a disabled veteran, it took care of his 2 years of college.
Just a second.
Okay.
You're being a disabled veteran and the government picking up part of his tuition means that we supported him, not you. Is it true that he was either self-supporting or on scholarships and or Pell Grants that he's going to have to return?
Yeah, he was on Pell Grants, but I supported him as far as sending monies for groceries or if he ran short.
How much money did you send him the year 2004?
I would say over $2,000.
Show me.
I don't have it as far as monetary back. Most of the time I would always deposit it in my account because we shared account.
I have bank statements showing to where there were deposits made on the account, and these are the only cash deposits on the account are ones that I made.
How many times did you withdraw money from this account, Mr. Cowan?
Very rare, maybe once a semester, if that.
So this was primarily your bank account, that you used this bank account to pay your bills?
Yes.
Okay. You have a copy of your tax returns from last year, sir?
Yes, ma'am. My W-2s and my tax return.
So you had an adjusted gross income of a little over $5,600.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to your statement, if I believed you, which I don't, At most, you sent your son $2,000.
Right.
Then you are not entitled to claim him as a deduction because you didn't contribute more than 50% of his support. You are not entitled to claim him as a deduction.
Yes, but according to VA, if I had not claimed him as a dependent, then they would not have taken care of his bills. You know, I'm not a...
Just a second. Let us say that because of some regulation, you were required to claim him as a dependent, even though you did not contribute more than 50% of his support. Let's say that that's true. Then what you should have done was discuss it with your son and say, listen, for the purposes of the VA, so that you can continue to have all your classes covered or whatever percentage the VA covers, I have to claim you as a dependent. But I'm going to give you the $2,000. What would have been wrong with that?
Well, I agreed to that. And
so then why are you complaining that he took the $2,000 out of your account?
Because it was the procedures that he took. Now, he know normally there has not denied him of anything.
So you didn't like the fact that he did it in a sneaky way?
That's right.
Okay. She says she didn't like the idea that you were sneaky about it. Well, I think, Ms. Cowan, one of the reasons he might have been sneaky about it was because when he filed his tax returns, he filed them as an independent, and then he was told later that he was denied his refund because you had already claimed him as a dependent. Had your mother discussed the fact that she was going to claim you?
She had said she was going to try to claim me to recoup some money that I hadn't paid her on a car payment. She told this to my uncle.
Oh, well, I don't want to hear about the car payment. Listen to me, Ms. Cowan. As far as I'm concerned, you've got a son that's doing the right thing. If you had a car and you let him take the car so that he could go to school and look for a job, that's what you're supposed to do. You're his mother. How many children do you have?
I have 2.
Okay, well, it seems to me this one is doing okay, which means that your mother probably did something right.
Yes, ma'am.
Should have done the right thing. Shouldn't have made this situation so mucky. Ms. Cowan, irrespective of what he did, you're still his mother, and I sometimes wonder whether I would have, I don't have to wonder, I would not have pursued this matter in court. I would have said to him, it's not the right thing to do. What's your first name?
Kenneth.
It's not the right thing to do, Kenneth. You shouldn't have gone behind my back and taken the $2,000 out of the account. I was prepared to give it to you, but you shouldn't have just taken it. I'm not so sure that you were prepared to give it to him because, according to you, he owed you some money on this car nonsense. Can't tell you how many cars I bought my children. If you had not claimed your son as a dependent, what would have been your refund?
I would have gotten $1,913 from that.
And how much did you actually get?
$29.13.
Yes, sir.
When I asked my mother for her tax return, I was going to return whatever she didn't get for claiming me. She sent me a tax return that said she only got $300 for me, which was false.
But you got $1,000 for you.
Right.
Is that what you want, sir?
Yes.
Then you have to give your mother back $1,000 because you took out $2,000 from her account.
No, I was supposed to get $2,000 back, and I was
Listen to me. What your mother is saying is she was required by the VA to claim you as a dependent in order for you to get certain benefits. So, although if you filed for yourself as an independent, you would have gotten $2,000, if she didn't file for you as a dependent of hers, you wouldn't have gotten other benefits which far outweighed that $2,000. Are you following me?
Yes, ma'am.
So that you should not have taken out the $2,000 from the account because all she got, by virtue of her claiming you as a dependent, was an extra $1,000. So that's all you were entitled to. Are you following me?
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all.
All parties in the matter of Green versus Trotter, step forward.
Valerie Green is suing her son's friend, 18-year-old Jesse Trotter, for breaking a door in her home. Jesse claims that Valerie's daughter is at fault.
Ms. Green, is this your daughter?
Yes.
It is your claim that the defendant broke a door in your house. He was there with your daughter and this other young man. You weren't in the room when it happened, so you have no idea what happened. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You. Perfect. Tell me your name.
Mike Numeraki.
Mike, how do you know the defendant?
He was my friend.
And how do you know this young lady?
She's my friend's sister.
Who was over at the Green house that day?
Jesse, Scott, Colleen, and I.
So there was one other person who's not here?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want you to tell me how the door got broken.
Well, Colleen got home and
Colleen?
Colleen, her.
So the 3 boys were in the house?
Yes, sir.
What room?
We're in the living room.
What were you doing?
Just hanging out.
there a television there?
Yeah, there's television.
Was it on?
Yeah.
Try yes. I like it a lot better.
Okay.
Maybe if he could see me, he would be able to speak better. Now, Colleen was coming home,
Yes, ma'am.
so you went and hid behind the door.
Yeah.
What was your intention? To scare her?
Yes.
So what happened when she came in the door?
I grabbed her.
How did
and
you grab her?
I had her hands behind her back.
Show me.
I had her like this, and then Jesse ran into Colleen.
How did
and
he run into her?
He ran at her like a linebacker.
Yeah. And?
And then we smashed through the window of the door.
Okay, sit down. All right, Jesse. He's grabbed her from behind. And what did you do?
Well, I went
No,
to the,
no, don't look down.
I went to the other side of the room, acting like I was going to kick her.
Like you were going to kick her?
Yes. And I jumped in front of her, and she put her foot on my knee and pushed off of me, forcing her and Mike through the window.
So whose fault do you think that is?
Colleen's.
Hers?
Yes.
What, are you an idiot? Would the door have gotten broken if you hadn't gone to the other side of the room and pretended like you were going to kick her?
Probably not.
And not only were you on the other side of the room, but in order for her to put her foot up and push off you, you had to have gotten closer to her, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you ran closer to her.
Yes.
What was your intention? You were going to try to scare her too, so that she thought you were going to kick her?
Yes, ma'am.
How much was the door?
$412.
You didn't do anything terrible, Mr. Trotter. I mean, everybody was just messing around and being stupid. But your actions caused this door to break. I mean, if he grabbed her from behind, that wasn't going to hurt anybody except her. She may have complained about that. But then what you did was escalate the whole thing by making it appear as if you were going to hurt her.
Yeah.
And if she put her foot up in front of you and pushed off to get you away from her, that's what she should have done.
Yes, ma'am.
You owe Mrs. Green $412 to fix her door. You're lucky nobody was hurt. You got to be smarter. You're a big guy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Easy. Goodbye. Have a happy day.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
19-year-old Preston Wamsley is suing neighbor Audrey Martinez and her son, 17-year-old Chris Rivera, for the cost of a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Preston claims Chris totaled the vehicle.
You and the defendants are neighbors. This is
Christopher Rivera.
17.
Yes.
And this is your mother. At some point, Christopher came to your house and asked if he could borrow your car. You knew he was 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is not an answer in court. Is fine outside here. You
Yes,
say
Your Honor.
yes, no, whatever. Your Honor is a nice touch. He said he needed your car so he could take his sister to school.
Yes.
But that was a partial truth. You know what that means?
I'm not sure.
It means it was only
half the truth.
partially true, half true. A little piece of it was true. Some of it was a lie. You didn't just want to take your sister to school. You did something else with the car, right?
Yes.
What else did you do with the car?
I gave my cousin a ride home.
And after you gave your cousin a ride home, then what else did you do with the car?
And I let April drive it.
Who's April?
Some girl.
Was she in the car?
Yes.
I didn't get that part of the story. How did April get into the car?
Because she was with my cousin.
How old is April?
17, I believe.
I want you to keep your voice up. You don't mind my yelling at him, do you?
No, ma'am.
Yes. And April wrecked the car.
Yes.
So, Mr. Wamsley, you expect Mrs. Martinez to pay for your car.
Yeah, and I was under the impression that he had a license.
I don't care whether you thought he had a license to drive race cars or drive a ship to the moon. You have no right to loan a car to a minor. None. Now, I read your complaint and you said, well, you thought he had a license because you saw him driving around in his mother's car.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Well,
Your
his
Honor.
mother wants to be a jerk and let him drive around in her car. That's her prerogative and her problem. But how do you know that his mother gave him permission to drive around in her car? Maybe he was just driving around in it when she wasn't home. Is that possible?
It could be, yes.
Sure. Does your son have a driver's license?
No, ma'am.
You ever give him permission to drive your car?
No.
You drive your mother's car?
Yes.
Where's your mother when you drive her car?
At home.
Does she know you drive her car?
No.
See what I mean? As a matter of fact, if he was injured while in your car that you let him borrow, she would sue you. I would have collected. Do you understand? When you're dealing with a minor, and he's a minor, he's a stupid minor, and he's dishonest, right?
Yes.
You do not do anything that would require parental permission, because when you talk in terms of minors, they are referred to as minors in the law because they're too stupid to make their own judgments. He's too stupid to make his own judgment. And you gave him a weapon. Was April hurt?
No, ma'am.
Anybody hurt?
No, ma'am.
You are a very lucky man, sir. You should go home and thank your lucky stars that somebody isn't suing you and taking your house away. Your case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Valerie Green is suing her son's friend, 18-year-old Jesse Trotter, for breaking a door in her home. Jesse claims that Valerie's daughter is at fault.
Mrs. Green, is this your daughter?
Yes.
It is your claim that the defendant broke a door in your house. He was there with your daughter and this other young man. You weren't in the room when it happened, so you have no idea what happened. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You. Perfect. Tell me your name.
Mike Numeraki.
Mike, how do you know the defendant?
He was my friend.
And how do you know this young lady?
She's my friend's sister.
Who was over at the Green house that day?
Jesse, Scott, Colleen, and I.
So there was one other person who's not here?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want you to tell me how the door got broken.
Well, Colleen got home and
Colleen?
Colleen, her.
So the three boys were in the house?
Yes, sir.
What room?
We're in the living room.
What were you doing?
Just hanging out.
Is there a television there?
Yeah, there's television.
Was it on?
Yeah.
Try yes. I like it a lot better.
Okay.
Maybe if he could see me, he would be able to speak better. Now, Colleen was coming home.
Yes, ma'am.
So you went and hid behind the door.
Yeah.
What was your intention? To scare her?
Yes.
So what happened when she came in the door?
I grabbed her.
How did you grab her?
I had her hands behind her back.
Show me.
I had her like this, and then Jesse ran into Colleen.
How did he run into her?
He ran at her like a linebacker.
Yeah. And?
And then we smashed through the window of the door.
Okay. Sit down. All right, Jesse. He's grabbed her from behind. And what did you do?
Well, I went to
No, don't look down.
I went to the other side of the room, acting like I was going to kick her.
Like you were going to kick her?
Yes. And I jumped in front of her, and she put her foot on my knee and pushed off of me, forcing her and Mike through the window.
So whose fault do you think that is?
Colleen's.
Hers?
Yes.
What are you, an idiot? Would the door have gotten broken if you hadn't gone to the other side of the room and pretended like you were going to kick her?
Probably not.
And not only were you on the other side of the room, but in order for her to put her foot up and push off you, you had to have gotten closer to her, right?
Yes.
So you ran closer to her.
Yes.
What was your intention? You were going to try to scare her too, so that she thought you were going to kick her?
Yes, ma'am.
How much was the door?
$412.
You didn't do anything terrible, Mr. Trotter. I mean, everybody was just messing around and being stupid. But your actions caused this door to break. I mean, if he grabbed her from behind, that wasn't going to hurt anybody except her. She may have complained about that. But then what you did was escalate the whole thing by making it appear as if you were going to hurt her.
Yeah.
And if she put her foot up in front of you and pushed off to get you away from her, that's what she should have done.
Yes, ma'am.
You owe Mrs. Green $412 to fix her door. You're lucky nobody was hurt. You got to be smarter. You're a big guy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Easy. Goodbye. Have a happy day.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Gary Estes III says he was assaulted in his home by Ryland Oliver. Ryland says Gary swung at him first.
Mr. Estes, it is your claim that Mr. Oliver was an uninvited guest in your home and that he assaulted you in your home.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Oliver, although he acknowledges that there were blows exchanged, says that he struck you in self-defense. You actually hit him first. And it is his claim that he was invited, not by you, but by someone else to the house. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
19.
You go to college?
Yes, ma'am.
Which one?
Oklahoma City Community College.
Could you try to speak a little slower? I'm old.
Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City Community College.
You live at home?
Yes.
And you, sir?
I go to a community college in Cleburne, Hill College. I did go to University of Oklahoma until this happened.
Changed schools?
Yes.
Did you have an apartment?
I was renting a house from witness Mark's parents had a rent house, and we were renting it from them.
How many people lived there?
3.
Were you living there as well, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Stand up. What's your name?
Mark Williams.
Are you scared?
No. Kind of nervous. A little nervous. I'm sorry.
Step over here. I have a couple of questions. Mr. Williams, this is your parents' house?
Yes.
Who was the third roommate?
Christopher.
Do you know Mr. Oliver? Did you know him before this incident happened?
Yeah, I knew him from high school, just randomly, just because we went to the same high school. I knew of him.
But he wasn't your friend?
No.
So you didn't invite him to your house?
No.
What date did this incident happen?
May 22nd.
Did you invite him to the house, Mr. Estes?
No, ma'am.
Did you know him from before?
No, ma'am.
Now, this Christopher person, is that the person that you knew?
No, ma'am.
You didn't know Christopher either?
No.
So you didn't know any of the 3 people that lived in this house?
No, ma'am.
What brought you to the house?
My friend DJ was leaving for the Navy, and they were throwing him a going away party, and he called us and asked us to come by.
You know DJ?
Yes.
Was he having a party at your house?
No, ma'am.
How many people were in the house on the evening of the 22nd of May?
About 7. We each had a friend over.
Was DJ there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it was the 3 people who lived in the house, plus 4 guests?
Yes.
All guys?
It was Sarah, one of her friends.
It was a girl.
It was a
Sarah
girl.
is definitely a girl.
Well, her friend is a girl.
What?
Her friend is a girl.
And DJ and us 3 that lived in the house.
Okay, so it was just a small gathering?
Yeah.
Okay, now you can sit down. Okay, so DJ said come on over to say goodbye.
Yes. He said they were having a going away party for me, and he asked
Well,
us
it
to come
doesn't
over.
sound like much of a party. There were only 7 people there.
There was more than 7 people there. There were people in the front yard.
There were only 7 people in the house, according to them. Where had you been that evening, Mr. Oliver?
I was over at a friend's house around campus.
Anybody drinking?
Yeah.
What about you?
Yes.
Who was driving?
Me.
How did I know that? How do you think?
I don't know, man.
You'll never know. So you were drinking and driving and went over to see your friend DJ, and what happened, sir?
When we were leaving the
Who's
party,
we?
my friend Ricky, and I had one more friend with me. I guess people overheard us and thought we were going to another party. So we had about 5 carloads of people following us saying we're going to another party.
You had 5 carloads of people following you where?
They thought we were going to another party, man. We tried to tell them that we weren't, and they followed us anyway.
What time?
About 2:30 in the morning, man.
You got the picture here, sir, that I'm not happy with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep going.
Okay, well, when we got there, we were walking up to the door. Mark lets me and my friend Ricky and David in.
You had let 3 of them in, is that right?
No.
Well, tell me what happened, sir. Thought he just said that you let them
Well,
in.
I opened the door. I was the first one to open the door, and I see there's 30 people outside that I don't know. And I see him and Ricky. They first come in. I never said they could come in. They just kind of pushed me aside and came in.
Okay.
And then they ran into him.
Now, where were the other 30 people that were outside?
Just out in my front yard. And I was like, I don't want these people here because my neighbors are going to call the cops, you know. They're making noise.
Right. 5 carloads of them.
Yeah.
So he ran into you.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you say?
I told him it was late. I didn't know who they were. There were 20 or 30 people out in our yard. We didn't want them here. They needed to leave. He tried to push me aside, and I tried to push him out of my house, and he dragged me outside, and he
Just
started.
a second. Well, Mr. Oliver, when Mr. Estes told you to leave, why didn't you leave?
Man, Mr. Estes never told us to leave. When we got there, Mark let us in. He stops us in the hall, and he put his hands on my chest and asked who are all these people.
Who were all these people?
Yeah, because they were still walking up. They
You
were
mean
way
the other
behind
30
us.
of them?
I don't know if it was 30, ma'am.
5 cars. He said to you, who are all these people? And what did you say?
I said, ma'am, I don't know. They followed us here.
And what happened after you
Well,
said that?
when he put his hands on me, I pushed his hand down like that, and I asked him not to touch me because I didn't know him. And he looks at me crazy and tells me that, you know, he pays the MF in rent here, and grabbed me on my shirt like that and tried to push me into the door. And when he did that, I kind of put my weight forward, and when I did, he swung at me, and he hit me in the jaw. And I retaliated by hitting him twice. He falls forward on me, I'm on my back, and I try to get up. I push myself, and he's still got a hold of my shirt. So people are running over there kicking and hitting. I'm getting kicked, he's getting kicked. I can't get up, and then I finally get pulled to my feet from one of my friends. And then when I got to my feet, I saw Mark had a cast on his hand. I don't remember which hand it was. But he's pushing people back, and he swung it at my friend Ricky here. And Ricky blocked, and it hit him in his forearms with the cast. And then Ricky pushed him back, and pretty much got out of there after that. Because I didn't know those people. It was, I mean, it's a rich neighborhood. It's 2:30 in the morning, so we left. I didn't want to be involved with that situation.
Well, Mr. Oliver, if you didn't want to be involved with that situation, sir, why didn't you just go home?
Because my friend
Instead of making trouble by stopping with 5 carloads of people that you don't know that have been out drinking all night because it's 2:30 in the morning and they're going to another party. Instead of being involved in creating a situation where none existed, Mr. Oliver, you created an incident. You had enough to drink, you were behind the wheel, you were taking a caravan over to someone's house that you didn't know in the rich part of town. You brought with you 5 carloads of drunken teenagers looking for another party. That's what you did. You created an incident because you're young and stupid. Mr. Oliver, they don't live in a rural area on 30 acres, do they? They live with houses right next door?
Yes.
With maybe people who are not 19 years old?
Yes.
30 in the morning?
Probably.
Maybe not interested in hearing you and your moronic friends? Probably.
Ma'am, when we got there, it was not 7 people there. They had people outside
Listen
drinking
to me,
in front of the
sir.
yard.
You brought over 5 carloads of people to a neighborhood where they didn't belong. And if you wanted to say goodbye to your friend, and if unfortunately 5 carloads of people, strangers, started to follow you, you go to the local police precinct and you say, these 5 carloads of people are following me. I don't want them to follow me. But you don't take them to an unsuspecting neighborhood unless you're an idiot. Can I see photographs, please? You have photographs for me?
No.
Was he arrested?
No.
Why not?
Because the police said that they felt that if we pressed charges, he'd retaliate. And
Can I see a police report, please?
And that's the picture of me is proof that I didn't just get pushed when I was trying to break it up.
No, you got so you were
I got
assaulted.
hit.
Mr. Oliver,
Yes, ma'am.
how many times you were arrested before?
Once.
When?
February 7th, I believe.
Of this year?
Yes.
For what?
Possession of marijuana and speeding.
So at that point, you were arrested for using an illegal drug and driving, right?
No, I got arrested for possession, ma'am.
Well,
I never got arrested
either
for
you were
influence.
using or selling. I mean, you weren't decorating your house with it, right?
Probably
Either
not.
you were using or selling.
I was using, ma'am, but I was.
Well, that's the answer. Can I see your unreimbursed medical bills, please? Anything you want to say to me?
No, ma'am.
Good idea. You're a fast learn. Do you have any idea how many people were hitting you?
4 or 5, at least, were kicking me.
And the 4 or 5 that were hitting you and or kicking you, because you have serious lacerations in your head, were those the people that came in this caravan of 5 cars?
I'm
They weren't
assuming.
your guests.
No, they weren't. And I still have shoulder rehab I have to go through. I may have to have surgery on it.
There are consequences to your actions. One of the consequences to your actions is having to listen to me. I'm telling you that your actions caused him serious physical injury and a lot of pain and suffering, because I've seen the photographs. Have you seen them?
Nope.
Would you like to see them?
Not really.
It's mature. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Rise. This is case number 122 on the calendar, the matter of McCants versus Young Moradian.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judge Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Ms. McCants, your claim is that you went to a photographer and had some photos taken of you.
Yes.
And those photographs were subsequently used without your permission by a gentleman who is representing the gentleman's club.
I am, Judge.
And your name is?
Joe Moradian.
For flyers to promote the club, and it was used in such a way as to depict you as a pole dancer. You were a
That's
college
correct.
student, and you gave no permission to Mr. Meridian or anyone else to use the photographs for those purposes. Mr. Young is a graphic designer who somehow got a hold of those pictures on the internet and created the flyer that Mr. Meridian used. So you're suing both of them.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Young says he got the photographs from the internet, from what he believed was a free site where anybody could take pictures and use them for commercial purposes. Mr. Meridian says he's not responsible because he didn't prepare the flyer, and all he did was commission somebody to do it, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, unfortunately for you, Mr. Meridian, that defense for this flyer won't fly, because the buck ultimately stops in the place where, if it was used improperly, it was used commercially for you, and you benefited from that photograph. So if I find that that happened without the plaintiff's permission, then you are responsible. Now, you have the right to sue those people that you think are responsible for getting you in hot water, and that would be somebody who you say created this flyer, but ultimately you're responsible. Okay, let's go back. When did you take these photographs and why?
These photographs were taken in March of 2008, and I did them with a photographer, David Garnes, as a test shoot.
Do you have pictures? Do you have the test shoot photographs?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to take a look at them.
Okay.
So they are provocative pictures, right? Now you can return them. And let me see the site, Mr. Young, where you got these pictures from.
Shows a disclaimer also.
I just want to show you this one right here.
Disclaimer on the website, Your Honor.
Can you show me where you say that this is a disclaimer and you can use these for free?
Well, he said disclaimer.
No.
I'm just showing
Now, I
you.
want you to come up here and point out to me, or take this pen and point out to me here where it says, not that that's dispositive necessarily, but point out where it says that you can use these for free.
Can I elaborate?
No, I want to look where Mr. Meridian says that he thinks you can use them for free.
I didn't say for free, Your Honor. I just said disclaimer for using the photos. It's
Exactly. That's what I said I wanted to do.
Go ahead.
Okay, see, when you go to official PSDs, you can log in, right? And then you buy pictures that are exclusive. Now, the website also have a public domain.
You used this picture in creating what flyer, sir? I want to see the flyer that you created.
And she has a flyer right there.
We discontinued the flyer, Your Honor.
Of course.
We also changed the name of the club.
Oh, well, it's exactly the same picture, madam. It's exactly the same picture. They didn't take your head and put it on somebody else's body,
Your
or your
Honor.
body
Not
and
at
put it
all.
on. This is the exact same picture that you took.
Yep.
Correct?
Yeah.
Quiet. Correct?
That's the photo that I took.
That's the photograph that you took. Okay. Not difficult. You cannot use her pictures for commercial purposes without either getting her permission or paying her. Do you understand? I'm going to say it again. You cannot use her picture, her likeness, for your commercial purposes without either getting a waiver from her, permission, or paying her.
Well, how much do we have to pay her?
Right. Today, how much do you have to pay her today? $5,000. That's what you have to pay her today.
But
Just a second.
Okay.
Because if she took these pictures for her own purposes and she didn't give you permission to use them, it would be no different from you going on your television set and taking a picture of me. And then, because I'm out there, I'm free, right? I'm free.
Sure.
You can go and take a picture of me. You can take a picture of me. I'm walking in the street. You can take a picture of me. Somebody takes a picture of me and posts it on their website, and it's free. He takes a picture of me. You're the photographer, right?
Correct.
He takes a picture of me and posts it on his website. We're going to make this easy. He takes a picture of me in the street, posts it on his website. Don't look confused, sir. We're getting there.
I'm educated man.
We're
I
getting
understand
there.
what you're saying.
Don't look confused. We're getting there.
I got you.
Takes
so
a picture
far.
of me, posts it on his website. Your graphic designer says, I know how we could get a whole bunch of people in our gentleman's club. I'm going to take Judge Judy's somebody else's body, if you really want to get a customer, and put her around a pole Now, shh, the picture is free. It's up there. He's posted my picture. Do you think that you have the right to use my image to get people to come into your club without my permission and without paying me?
See,
the answer is you do not.
But that's different.
No, sir. It's not different, Mr. Young. It's exactly the same. Now, let's say that there's a disclaimer on here.
Okay.
Let's say that it says free, you can use it free, and all these people are 21 years or older. And you say, well, that's fine. I can use these, and they're all 21 years and older. And one of them turns out to be 14.
Oh.
Listen to me. One of them turns out to be 14. And you take her picture, and you make her into a pole dancer, and you make flyers of her. Do you know where you're going to find yourself? In federal prison. And your defense of, I didn't know she was 14, she looked 21, they're going to say to you, that doesn't matter. That's kiddie porn. And you can't accept somebody else's statement here that it's free, just like if you meet a girl at a bar and you go home with her and have sex with her, and she turns out to be 13, and she's dressed like a 35-year-old, and they arrest you for statutory rape, you can't say to them, she told me she was 20, and she looked like 20, I didn't know. You know where you find yourself? In federal prison. Now, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You cannot use somebody else's likeness for your commercial purposes without getting a waiver from them and without paying them if they want to be compensated. Do you get it? Don't argue. Do you get it?
Get it? I don't agree with it.
Then move to Namibia or someplace else. I don't care where you move to. In this country, you cannot exploit someone.
Well, Your Honor.
Listen to me. You cannot exploit someone.
She exploited herself by putting herself all over the internet in a bikini.
No, my dear.
If she didn't want
my dear,
herself-
she didn't do that.
What were those shots for, Your Honor?
Listen to me. He did that.
Then
He
she
did that.
should be suing her photographer
Just
then.
a second. You used it for commercial purposes.
I didn't use it.
Yes, you did.
I didn't pay this gentleman.
Listen to me. You used it for your own commercial purposes. If you think that you have the right to implead, which is sue the people who got you in trouble, do it.
All I'm saying is that...
Just a second. I'm not talking to you. Do it. But you used the flyers, you generated income from the flyers, and you are responsible for ensuring that anybody whose image you use, you have permission to use that image by either a waiver, a consent, or a contract that pays them money. That's your responsibility. That's the buck stops. Now, you could say, listen, I was misled by somebody, so I'm going to sue them. You have the right to do that. Right now, the two of you are going to pay her $5,000. Now you can sit down. Now, you're the plaintiff.
Yes, I am.
Sit. Now you can stand back up again. Has he been sworn?
They've all been sworn.
All right, you're the photographer.
Yes, I am.
You're suing them.
I'm suing Farron
You're suing for what?
for using my picture for
That's
commercial
too bad. For using the picture without your permission? That would come under the category of too bad. Did you have her permission to post her picture on the internet?
Yes, I did.
Let me see it.
I don't have it.
That's too bad that you don't have it. Where'd you think you were coming to today? A tea dance?
No, I wanted to tell you.
Did you think
because-
you were coming to
No,
a
I
tea
didn't.
dance?
No, I didn't.
Then you bring me her permission and her consent to put her picture up on the internet.
Well, she is my witness. Can she?
No,
Okay.
I want to see it because right now there could be a conspiracy between the two of you to get you another $5,000, which I'm not going to tolerate. Quiet!
Okay.
Do you understand that, sir?
I do understand that, man.
Right. As far as I'm concerned, you had no right to put her picture up on the internet. So you're not going to get compensated diddly. You got it?
Okay.
Goodbye.
By his excuse, you may step out.